Why are you not commenting on the Northwestern thing? I wanted to save it for this. The word that I would use to describe my reaction to everything that happened is devastated. I have been devastated by what has happened. I have been devastated first and foremost for the players who were affected by this. I feel devastated for the players who are there now. I have no idea how they're going to handle this. So many of the things that the university have done feel so logically inconsistent to me that I can't explain them, and I'm waiting to hear them explain. As far as Pat Fitzgerald, he's someone I've known since he was a player. I've known him for 30 years, and I believe him to be an outstanding person. And that has not changed. But good people make huge mistakes. I can't explain it, but I also can't condone it.
Greeny with Mike Greenberg. Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Plus, you can watch and listen on the ESPN app.
Coming to you live from the Superbook Sports Studios in Kettering. You're listening to Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Where in the heck did the weekend go? My goodness. Welcome in, everybody. Happy Monday. It's the Kinner and Kev Show live here on Dayton's ESPN radio station, 1410 Wing AM. You're stuck with me and just me today. Well, at least for the opening of the show, because we're going to be joined in studio here shortly. College Football Hall of Famer Keith Byars. He's going to hop in studio with us and hang out. We got a ton to talk about with him. Ryan Day, of course, as we talked about last week, kicking the tires on potentially having that conversation about moving the date and the time for the game, right? And, well, it's one thing to talk about it amongst Kev and I, but let's talk about it with one of the greatest Buckeyes of all time, and Keith Byars. He'll be with us here in studio coming up. I'm also excited to pick his brain a little bit about the fact that, hey, the devaluation of the running back in today's NFL, at least from a financial prioritization standpoint, we'll talk about that with him as well. Again, 13 years in the NFL, former Pro Bowl running back. Who better to ask than Keith Byars coming up here in a bit. The Reds back atop the division, taking 2 or 3 from the Dodgers on the road. Do you remember when the West Coast, if the Reds left, I mean, the Reds lost a lot, kind of regardless of the time zone and where, but it was interesting. The Reds went on the road and dominated the Dodgers. I know they lost one in there, but 9-0 shutout win over the Dodgers yesterday. My goodness. I mean, look out. The Cincinnati Reds are for real, and reinforcements are on their way, and they could be adding even more as the deadline approaches. We're going to get into my thoughts on the Reds announcing on Friday night the extension of David Bell. Some people love it, some people hate it, and some people are right there in the middle. And I think right there in the middle is where you're going to find me hanging out. And I'll talk about that coming up here in just a moment. But all right, thank you for tuning in again. It's the Kinner and Kev Show right here on 1410 Wing AM. Kev Nash joins us later on in the week, and excited to kick off the show today as we have a lot to get into. 518-1410, 518-1410. That's the number to call and jump in on the conversation. And we're going to, of course, start the show out with a little Reds talk. Again, the Cincinnati Reds taking 2 or 3 over the weekend against those Dodgers, right? And the Reds used to go on the West Coast, and they would get swept by the Dodgers. They would get destroyed by the Padres. They could not win on the West Coast. You went to go play in Los Angeles, whether it was the Angels, Dodgers, stay on the West Coast, and you play the Padres. It didn't matter. The Cincinnati Reds were going to lose. Now, unless it's Milwaukee, I've never seen anything like this, by the way, to where a team is elite against every team in baseball except for one. And I'm not saying that there's not an example that exists out there, but from a baseball perspective, I just can't figure it out. Milwaukee is not one of the top 5 teams in baseball, but the Reds look like a top 5 team in baseball when they're playing anybody except the Milwaukee Brewers. And I'm not going to lie, after the Reds dropped that final game against the Brewers before the All-Star break, I thought that was kind of a very negative way to take momentum into the break, and I was worried about the break. I remember we had Sam LeCure on, and I had asked him specifically, what is it about the break that worries him? Because I remember he agreed with me that I was worried about the All-Star break. Sam LeCure was worried about it as well, because during his time as a player, he knows it's a shift in a mindset on the season. Any momentum, good or bad, that was established heading into the break, it disappears, which is why teams who are struggling kind of like the break because it's kind of a reset period, and teams that are rolling kind of hate the break because, oh man, we kind of lose our mojo a little bit. And that's what happened with the Reds. They come out, they get swept by the Brewers. They lose 4 straight. Okay. They lost the final one of the first 3-game series at GABP before the break. And then they lose the first 3 coming out of the All-Star break against Milwaukee. It was just unfortunate, right? and then they lose the next 2 against the Giants. Then they take the final 2 against the Giants, and then they just continue on. Then they kind of get back in their rhythm a little bit, because then they sweep Arizona. They drop 2 or 3 against Milwaukee again. It's like they just can't seem to get past them. And then they go and take 2 or 3 from the Dodgers, and they have a huge series tonight that they kick off with the Cubs. The Reds sitting atop the NL Central, 58-49. They have a half-game lead over the Brewers. Keep in mind, the reason that this is an interesting race for the NL Central is the Brewers dominated the Reds all season. They have, just dominated the Reds all season long. They will not play again the rest of the way. So for the division to be this tight, and there will not be another matchup between the two over the next 2 months, I think that's wild to me, and that's a huge plus for the Cincinnati Reds. Because if they would have played that final game of the regular season with the division on the line, I'm sorry, I am a betting man, and I would not put money on the Reds to beat the Brewers, and I don't care how dominant they've looked. The Dodgers, keep in mind, all right, the Dodgers, 59-45. They're sitting atop the NL West, arguably one of, if not the best division in baseball as far as consistency, especially when you look at the fact that the Dodgers at 59 wins, the Giants at 58 wins, the Diamondbacks at 56 wins, and then you have an underachieving San Diego Padres team that's 52-54. They can catch fire like that. They have a roster. They have pitching and pop in that lineup. At any moment, they could flip that switch and decide, you know what, we want to play. That's the best, deepest division in baseball. The Reds taking care of business against the Padres. They just swept the Diamondbacks. They split with San Francisco on the road, of course. And then you got the Dodgers, who they just took 2 or 3 from on the West Coast. And then the last time they played them, which was Elly De La Cruz's series debut, they took 2 or 3 from the Dodgers at home as well. The Reds are stacking up against the best teams in baseball. I know Atlanta Braves, from a win-loss standpoint, the Braves technically from a win-loss standpoint have dominated the Reds. But you know what? They haven't dominated the Reds, because the Braves, every win has been by 1 run. The win that the Reds have over the Braves, 1 run. The Reds took care of the Marlins, took care of them easily, right? The Reds took care of the Mets, took care of them easily. They have the Washington Nationals coming up. Now, the Nationals aren't a team to fear by any means, but that's a winnable series coming up. The Reds have dominated everyone in the National League except Milwaukee. And that's what makes this Cubs series pretty interesting, because now the Cubs are 4 games back, but they're 8-2 in their last 10. The Cubs are actually one of the hottest teams in baseball. We went from talking about the Cubs potentially selling off a lot of pieces at the deadline, which is coming up less than or just over 24 hours at 6 p.m. tomorrow night is the deadline. It's wild to me that the Cubs are right back in this, but it doesn't surprise me. It's wild to me, but it doesn't surprise me. It's the Cubs. That's the team to look out for in the Central. I know the Reds are my favorite right now, but the Cubs aren't going anywhere. The Cubs are only going to keep climbing back into this thing, so keep an eye on them. But that's what makes this series 4 at Wrigley. Game 1 tonight, 3 games the rest of the week, of course, and the Reds will return home this weekend, but they got the Nationals in town, followed by the Marlins. So if the Reds could at the very least split with the Cubs, that'd be huge. I think the Reds need to take 3 or 4. I think they're capable of taking 3 or 4, and they have their hands full. I believe Graham Ashcraft is on the mound, Andrew Abbott's on the mound tonight, and that's huge, especially to set the tone at Wrigley, a place where the Reds historically have not played well. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Kinner and Kev Show right here on 1410 Wing AM. We're live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page. We're live on ESPN Dayton's YouTube channel. Reggie Romine, what up, Reggie? Reggie says, how's it going today, sir? It's beautiful out today, not too hot. It sounds like a good day to be out on the golf course. I tell you that. I'm going to try and end my day on the golf course. I promise you that much. But good to hear. Hope you're doing well. Troy, what up, Troy? Troy says, happy Monday. Reds in first. Yes, they are. The Reds are in first, and that's with what we keep deeming a depleted roster due to injuries and others. They're without Hunter Green. They're without Nick Lodolo, obviously, and there's potential that they could add at the deadline. And that's where we're at right now. The big question is, what are the Reds going to do with the deadline coming up less than or just over 24 hours from now? Here's a little injury update from C. Trent Rosecrans, by the way. Okay. Here's a little injury update on the reinforcements that are potentially coming to help your Cincinnati Reds. Okay. Right-handed pitcher TJ Antone. I've been a huge fan of TJ Antone. He really took off when Bauer was here, when Trevor Bauer was with the Reds. And TJ Antone benefited the most from working with the team of Trevor Bauer, with his pitching coach and everything. I'm really excited to see what TJ Antone could do coming back. He is scheduled to pitch for AAA Louisville this coming up Wednesday. I think we could potentially see TJ Antone within the next couple of weeks. That would be huge. Another arm in the bullpen that you can consistently rely on, assuming he's the same TJ Antone that he was before the injury. Hunter Green, an update on him. Right-handed pitcher Hunter Green, of course, had the hip issues. He's scheduled to start a rehab assignment for Arizona this week. The current schedule has him returning to the Reds on August 20th. Reinforcements are coming. Here's a name that I found interesting that is kind of making its ways back into the conversation with the Cincinnati Reds. It could be a sign and trade or however you want to do this. I'm not really sure. I'm not the most I'm not the most well-versed on how these teams kind of manipulate these trades and stuff, especially like it's very different than the NFL and the NBA, of course. But Michael Lorenzen is a name that is continuing to be brought up. Michael Lorenzen could be a cheap rental player or a player that the Reds can reunite with and sign to an extension because he's a starting pitcher that is not going to cost a lot of money and will provide depth in that rotation. Lorenzen going to be a free agent, and he's right now coming off of 3 consecutive scoreless starts. All right, that's 3 consecutive scoreless starts. This is the hottest he's been. I mean, he had big starts in April and May, kind of cooled off in June a little bit, and then he's picked up here in the last couple of weeks here in the month of July. So keep that in mind. I think Michael Lorenzen's an interesting name that they can kick the tires on as far as that's concerned, because as of right now, Tigers aren't really doing anything. All right, they're still mathematically in it, but realistically not in it. Another name that keeps being mentioned as a potential target for the Reds at the deadline, and maybe not a target, but the Reds they've had a lot of heavy presence at Mets games when it comes, obviously, to the Mets. But the name that's kind of making its rounds a little bit is Justin Verlander. Now, that goes totally against what Nick Krall and the front office has kind of told us that they're looking for. They're looking for young starting pitching under team control for the next couple of years. All right, so that's not Justin Verlander, but at the same time, he does have, obviously, the rest of this season, and he does have all of next year left on his contract. If the Reds had to give up a prospect to go get him, here's the deal. I'm not against it. A lot of Reds fans are like, no. Do not even think about going after Justin Verlander. Do not even think about giving up a top prospect for a 40-year-old pitcher. And although I want to agree with that, although I get where people are coming from, the fact of the matter is this, is that the Reds are in a win-now mode despite being in a win long-term mode as well. That's what's fascinating about all this. The Reds are so far ahead of schedule, okay? They're so far ahead of schedule that it has totally thrown the front office off as far as what they want to do and how they want to stick to the plan. Excuse me. All right, Justin Verlander is a pitcher that, no, of course, if you're the Cincinnati Reds, you don't even think about it if you're a team that's obviously not in the hunt or anything like that. Or if you're 3 or 4 games out of the wild card and you're 3 or 4 games out of the division, and there's a shot that if you get hot in a week, you can maybe close the gap, but there's a lot of deficiencies. Folks, there's not a lot of deficiencies on this roster. There are holes that they need to patch up, but I don't think there's a lot of deficiencies with this roster. If you keep getting outings the way the Reds have got from Graham Ashcraft and Graham Ashcraft and Andrew Abbott, and you're getting Hunter Green back, and you're going to get Nick Lodolo back, folks, if you can bring in a Justin Verlander on top of that, the Reds starting pitching, it's not as big of a problem as what we thought it was. In fact, the starting pitching was a big problem in the first half. The bullpen right now is still pretty good, but it needs a little bit more depth. To sit there and say that the Reds should not even give up one single top prospect for Justin Verlander is kind of missing the point. You don't know. When's the next time? You have no idea when the next time the Reds are going to be sitting atop the division. Baseball, you're promised nothing. All right, you're promised nothing in baseball, period. And it doesn't matter. I mean, right now, the Reds have been relatively healthy. The top 2 names, knock on wood. Let me see. There we go. Knock on wood. The Reds have been relatively healthy. Now, if you would have told me that, man, Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo both out for months at a time, I'd say this team doesn't stand a chance, and they're going to go right back to the expectations that we had coming in, which was to lose and to lose a lot. But they've won in spite of losing those 2. So now you're going to get them back. That's just a cherry on top, adding depth. I think you need a veteran pitcher that you can rely on when you make the playoffs. Because this isn't I think the Reds are just on a little mini hot streak. And no, this is a legitimate Reds team. They're not the favorites to win the World Series by any means. But if Abbott and Graham Ashcraft are pitching the way that they have, they're not the sexiest names in baseball, but statistically, they match up with the best pitchers in baseball on any given night in the playoffs. And the Reds have a very good record on the road, so it doesn't matter if it's road or home games. This is a very good baseball team. You add Justin Verlander in there. If you get to the playoffs, you need that dominant veteran pitcher that you could put on the mound on game 1. And to be all honest with you, I would have said Hunter Green or Nick Lodolo is your night 2 pitcher. But you know what? No. I think that's Andrew Abbott. If Justin Verlander is your starting pitcher for game 1, you could put Andrew Abbott game 2. You have Graham Ashcraft game 3, and then you have Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo on the back half of that. I like this Reds rotation, but it does need a veteran presence. It needs an experienced arm. And to sit there and say that that could be the difference between getting into the wild card and getting an early exit and winning in a wild card series and moving on and kind of picking up momentum throughout the playoffs. I'm sorry. I think it's very silly of Reds fans to say that, no. You don't give up a Collier. You don't give up a top arm or a top prospect for a Justin Verlander. You could balance it out. You can give up one of those top prospects. You can give up one of those top pieces if it means getting a dominant starting pitcher, even if he's 40, under team control for next year, and kind of go from there. I don't think the Reds are playing with house money right there. It's rare to have a team develop, or it's rare to have a team that fills up their entire farm system with elite talent and have all that talent hit at once. To have all that, to have McLean and Elly De La Cruz and Steer, and obviously who we missing? I know we're Christian Encarnacion Strand. I mean, and Elly and everyone else, to have them all hit at once, and then to have Andrew Abbott come in and hit at the same time as the guys who are hitting the ball. To have Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo obviously be injured is unfortunate, but to have them come back and be the centerpieces of that rotation, I mean, what are we doing here? We can't have it all. And to be honest with you, as much as I love this regular season run that the Reds are on, I don't trust anyone in the rotation to pitch a game 1 of a huge playoff series or a game 7 of a playoff series. That needs to be Justin Verlander. I'm going to push that as hard as I can. I'm a big fan of the idea of going to get a Justin Verlander, even if it means giving up one of the top prospects in the Reds farm system. It doesn't mean you give up everything, but you got to be able to balance it out. If Nick Krall doesn't want to make a big flurry of moves because he doesn't want to give up top prospects, I can respect that. This team's not that bad, even without making moves at the deadline. But the one thing that I think that they need more than anything is this move needs to be made, not necessarily to make sure that the Reds get in the playoffs, but when the Reds make the playoffs, they need to have a guy that they can kind of calm the nerves of the presence of the rest of the clubhouse, and that's Verlander. I don't think I'm being short-sighted here and saying, we need to give up top prospects because they have to go get a 40-year-old pitcher. Forget the 40-year-old pitcher. The guy has an ERA just north of 2. He's dominant still, even after the slow start with the injury. I'll take Justin Verlander over anyone else at the deadline right now that's available because of the fact that you get him for the rest of this year. You also have him for all of next year. You head into the offseason, you want to go in a different direction. You could spin him for more prospects, or you could spin him to get another pitcher, or whatever you need to do it. I like the idea of having Justin Verlander on this team. It's a move that you may not notice the impact right off the bat because they're getting good starting pitching right now. But it's a move that you're going to look back on and say, oh, yeah, maybe Kinner was right. If they do make the playoffs, I think that they will. And then all of a sudden we get a big choke job from a Graham Ashcraft or a Nick Lodolo or a Hunter Green or an Andrew Abbott. We're going to say, man, if only they had a veteran presence in that rotation to help show the way. 518-1410, 518-1410. Let's go to Adam. Adam, thanks for holding. How are you, my friend?
Hey, great. How are you doing? Hey, so you did make some points there when I was on hold. I guess my only question going with Justin Verlander, the Mets are obviously trying to rebuild whatever farm system they don't have at this point. Do you see them they got Acuna's brother from the Rangers. Do you see them going for, at least, obviously they're going to ask for at least that. That's probably going to mean 2 to 3 of the Reds' top guys. You're still comfortable with them going for that if they're at 3 for 1 for Verlander, like you said, because they have control for him next year? It's not like a Scherzer. And do you see the Reds taking on his contract? Because obviously the Mets worked it out where Scherzer is getting paid by the Mets. I don't see the Mets doing that for multiple guys. Just your thoughts on that.
And you're right. I mean, look, if they can, and by the way, great point. And I guess my point is too, I was excited. I was assuming if the Reds could do a similar deal with the Mets where they pay the majority of Verlander's contract, if they pay the majority of the contract, I'm okay with giving up on a top prospect the future.
Yeah, I would too. That's almost a no-brainer. You're not having to pay a guy for a year.
So the guy, Cam Collier, is the guy that I'm willing to part ways with. If it's Cam Collier, Edwin Arroyo kind of scares me a bit, but I mean, we're also sitting here saying that, okay, if the Reds, between Spencer Steer, McLean, and Elly De La Cruz and Christian Encarnacion Strand, I'm not saying that they're locked up for the next 5 or 6 years, but it's not like there's a path to Novelli Marte or Edwin Arroyo being legitimate dudes right off the bat. I don't give either of those two up for Justin Verlander. I get that. But at the same time, Cam Collier, along with some other mid prospects and all that, I would take Justin Verlander off their hands. And the Reds are listed as a potential target for the Mets to get a deal done. So we'll see what ends up happening.
I think we can both agree the Mets are going to answer the phone regardless on pretty much everyone on their team. It looks like, especially Verlander. It's just not sure the Reds would be in the position. They would have a good feeling on the asking price for the Mets initially. I hope they don't have to hang up the phone so fast so I can get with you there. Appreciate the time, man. Thanks.
Anytime, man. Appreciate you. 518-1410. Adam brings up a lot of good points. Look, do I think that this is going to happen? I don't. But what I don't want to have happen is that the Reds don't even entertain it because they're so locked into their prospects that they're not thinking clearly. Because I'm a big Nick Krall fan. I've been defending Nick Krall for a lot longer than most people have. And keep in mind that this is a situation where baseball, it's such a hard sport. There's so many moving elements and pieces that this idea that, well, because the Reds are in first in July of 2023, that means that that's where the Reds are going to be forever moving forward, or at least for the next 2 or 3 or 4 years with this core. What's wild is, would you imagine 2 years from now with knowing how the Reds' luck works? I would feel just gutted if 2 years from now things don't take off and the Reds look back at this deadline and say, man, we were rolling. We have yet to get back to that momentum that we had in the middle of 2023. If only we would have gone after a Verlander. If only we would have gone after a veteran arm at the deadline, maybe we could have made something happen that year. But you're not promised over the next couple of years to get back to this point where you're sitting atop your division and pretty much locked into a wild card spot, assuming you continue on the pace that you're at from the win-loss perspective. A lot of good stuff in the chat section on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page, on the ESPN Dayton YouTube channel. I'm going to comb through some of that, and I'm going to get to some of your responses on the other side. If you want to call in, you could do that now, 518-1410. It's the Kinner and Kev Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. We'll be right back.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash.
Justin, you're awesome, baby.
Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
ESPN 1410.
And 58 tonight, sunshine and 86 Tuesday, Wednesday, more sun and a high of 87 by Rick Shrimp for 1410 ESPN Radio.
At Fisher Investments, our clients know we have their backs.
How do your clients know that?
Because Fisher Investments is a fiduciary, the highest standard for a financial advisor. It means we're there for our clients and always put their interests first.
So wait, you do it because you have to?
No, we do it because it's the right thing to do. Our clients trust us with their retirement savings, and we know how important that responsibility is. So we take the time to really get to know them.
Get to know them how?
We make sure we understand their unique goals, finances, health, family, and lifestyle so we can tailor their portfolio to their specific needs. Our goal is to help them achieve a comfortable retirement.
Sounds like a big responsibility. You must make big commissions then, right?
No, we don't sell commission-based products. Clients do better. Visit FisherInvestments.com to find out why investors like you are switching to us. Fisher Investments. Clearly different money management.
Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Do you or any of your family members, neighbors, or friends own a property that you just want to be done with it? If so, call TurboTrack Realty today for an all-cash offer at 614-470-2000, 614-470-2000. Would it be convenient for you to take what you wanted and leave the rest behind? Great, I'll buy it. Call 614-470-2000. That's 614-470-2000.
Sports injury, low back pain, or are you interested in improving your performance and getting to the next level? Orion Sports Medicine is truly a unique sports medicine and physical therapy clinic and training facility. We offer a highly educated staff that is experienced working with athletes from the recreational and youth levels to elite professionals. We offer services that include PT, functional assessment, wellness, fitness, return to sports, sports medicine, strength and conditioning, and more at our state-of-the-art facility in Miamisburg. For more information, visit orionsportsmedicine.com.
Cordell Transportation is now hiring Class A CDL drivers. Excellent pay, benefits, and a $5,000 sign-on bonus. Apply today. Online at CordellTransportation.com. Driven to succeed.
Hold up, you're using Swiffer Power Mop? What would Mom say?
Oh, she'd be like, a mopping bucket is the only way to deep clean your floors. And I'd be like, Mom, this is the new Swiffer Power Mop, the all-in-one that gets you a mop and bucket clean in half the time.
She'd never believe you.
I'd say, look, the solution's built right in, so no heavy bucket. And the pad has hundreds of scrubbing strips to get into grout lines. That's why you're the smart one.
Really?
What? Mom said it.
The new Swiffer Power Mop. Don't mop harder, mop smarter.
Nothing slows my little girl down, except a stuffy nose.
Mommy.
That's why I use Sinex Children's Saline from Vicks. Sinex instantly clears mucus in everyday stuffy little noses with a gentle, ultra-fine mist designed for kids. Just Sinex? Breathe. Her stuffy nose is gone for now. And so is she.
Sinex Children's Saline. Sinex, breathe. Use as directed, keep out of reach of children.
Wendy's drive-thru is open until midnight or later for all your late-night cravings. So give in to what you want and order a Baconator even later. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
Have a hot take of your own that you're just dying to get off your chest? Text or call the ESPN Dayton hotline at 937-518-1410. That's how you can be a part of our local shows throughout the week, like the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, weekdays at 3 p.m., and the Keith Byars Show, Mondays at noon. Call or text the shows at 937-518-1410.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Justin Kinner with you here, Dayton's radio home of the Cincinnati Reds, and we'll have game one between the Reds and the Cubs coming up later on this evening. 7:35 is when pregame coverage begins. First pitch, 8:05, right here on 1410 Wing AM. Trade deadline coming up tomorrow evening, and the Reds have been pretty quiet, despite Nick Krall coming out and saying that they were going to be looking to add. They were not going to be sellers at the deadline, and I think we all get that and understand that. But this is the typical Reds, though. I mean, every time the Reds make moves at the deadline, it's the deadline. I mean, it's like how I approach college. I've known that I've had months and weeks to get projects done, but if it's due tomorrow at noon, it's going to be sent to the professor at 11:55. It was a flaw, and I think it's a flaw of the Reds as well. As I've stated before, I mean, like, let's be honest here. As we sit here right now on July 31st, heading into the month of August, I said about a month and a half ago, the Reds need pitching. And even if they have good pitching here and there, they need more good pitching. So if it's a need now, it's going to be a need then. And sure enough, the same needs that the Reds have now are the same needs that they had a month and a half ago. I'm not a fan of the procrastination on Nick Krall and others, and I don't want to hear about guys driving up the price of, guys aren't trying. Stop. Even if they didn't make a move a month and a half ago, the fact that all these moves are going on around the Reds and they're still just sitting on their hands, it's a little frustrating because, again, we're not going to notice it now. If the Reds don't make a splash at the deadline, we're not going to notice it now. We're going to be pissed off in October. We're going to be pissed off in late September if they go on a big drought and all of a sudden don't make the playoffs because, they were just counting on getting healthy and they weren't willing to mortgage the future. We're not asking you to mortgage the future, but you can give up on one prospect. You could tell this team is nervous and they're not really locked in on how to handle this situation. I'm a little concerned. I love Nick Krall. I love the job that he has done. It doesn't mean that I'm not a little concerned about the headspace of the guys in the front office for the Reds right now. And as I'm talking, I'm sure along the ticker at the bottom, I'm sure breaking news anytime the Reds will make a big move and the egg on my face and all that. And then I'll, eat my words like I normally do. But for right now, I don't like the vibe from the Reds as far as from that front. I'm a big fan of the vibe from the Reds as far as the winning and everything else that's going on. But again, October baseball is drastically different. If they're just counting on getting to October, that's going to tick me off because the bottom line is if you feel like your team is already good enough to make the playoffs, then the approach at the deadline should not be moves to get you to the playoffs. It should be moves to get you through the playoffs. This Reds team as constructed, I'm not confident can make a playoff run unless they make a couple changes, more depth to the bullpen and a legitimate starting pitcher that has veteran presence experience and all that fun stuff. That's Justin Verlander. And to say that you can't give up on Collier and others, yes, you can. You don't give up 2 or 3 top prospects, but to act like you can't give up one, stop it. And there's not a lot of team control guys over the next couple of years that teams are. I mean, a lot of times if you're a bad team and you're rebuilding, young team-friendly guys are who you're going to keep on to, right? I mean, again, I'm not being negative or anything, but I mean, some of the stuff I'm getting back, like for instance, Evan Maurer on YouTube, Evan Maurer, a keyboard warrior, said that that's awful logic. He goes on to say, don't let the present bias blind you. I got glasses on, bro. Look, see, I wear glasses. I think I'm good, bro. I could see just fine. Evan Maurer goes on to say, I get the sentiment. The Rays don't make Verlander moves to remain competitive. Craw has mentioned over and over again that he likes how the Rays do it. Well, Mr. Maurer, it's been 10 years since the Rays have been to a World Series, and the organization's never won one. And although they were the hottest team in baseball to start the season, looking at the standings now, obviously a game and a half back in the AL East, but obviously 4-6 in their last 10. It's not as if this team is just wreaking havoc on the World Series scene year in and year out. And you look at the Cincinnati Reds right now at 58 and 49. They're just, 4 games back of Tampa to begin with. Look, Tampa's a great organization, and I don't mind that. But at the same time, if you're the Tampa Rays, you've been to 2 World Series. You've lost both of them. The 2013 World Series that they went to. Maybe you make a move at the deadline, give yourself one more hitter, one more pitcher, one more weapon in the bullpen. Maybe instead of talking about the 2 World Series that you've been to, we could talk about the World Series that they won. So don't say that's awful logic. I don't think it's awful logic at all. It's not awful logic to say that a team with no experience pitching whatsoever might need a veteran presence arm in the rotation and a dominant pitcher at that in Justin Verlander. So no, Evan, it's not awful logic. In your opinion, I wouldn't consider awful either if you weren't a child and said mine was awful. So now I'm going to be a child and say that your opinion's awful. So, we could do this all day. But no, nonetheless, Dennis on Facebook says Verlander instantly makes the Reds a credible threat come playoff time in the National League. They have proven the last 4 years to draft well and make key trades. We have plenty of prospects that can give a few up for a bona fide proven ace. Capitalize on this year and make the damn move. Let's go Reds. I want to be honest with you. I don't think this move is happening. I don't think that the Reds are going to get Verlander, but at the same time, I think it's silly to not aim for those types of guys. I was a fan of adding Aroldis Chapman a month and a half ago from the Royals, and everyone said, no, that's silly. You don't make that move a month and a half ago. You make it later. I'm pretty sure having Alexis Diaz and having Chapman in that bullpen would be pretty damn cool. What don't you think? But the Reds said, no, we don't make a move right now. We got to wait till later. This coming after the Royal series when Chapman said he wanted to be a Red. The Reds didn't make that move. Reds, I've been patient because, hey, you weren't supposed to be this good, but my expectations are changing as your expectations are changing. You're a winning ball club now. You're a first-place team in a pretty deep division. The Cubs are proven to be legitimate. They were obviously not off to the start that we wanted. I don't really care about the Cubs having a hot start, but they didn't have the run that we expected, but yet here they are. They're in the mix of it as well. The Brewers aren't going anywhere, and then there's the Reds. Every time we think that the Reds are going to start to slow down, they keep rolling. So continuing to go down this, David Mann on Facebook says, unless they get the Mets to eat 90% of his remaining money, people need to remember who the Reds ownership is and forget the Verlander talk. Lorenzen is probably the one on the trade block. That's who they'll get, if anyone. And I'm fine with going to get Michael Lorenzen. I really am. And I agree with you that the Mets are going to have to eat a lot of the money the way that they did with the Max Scherzer deal. But can we stop with the remember who the Reds ownership is? You guys get mad with this is what drives me nuts about Reds fans. You guys are an intelligent fan base, but stop with these comments about the ownership. You know who the ownership is. They're not going to spend money. You guys get pissed when they spend money, and then when they don't spend money, you say they're cheap. They spend money on Joey Votto. That's an awful contract. How are you going to pay him $25 million a year? It's a horrible contract. What? Then when they don't pay anybody, but know who the ownership is. They're not going to pay anybody. Then they pay, obviously they go and they don't give the money to Cueto, which that's a whole other argument. And they go and they give their money elsewhere. And can't believe they paid that pitcher that much money. An up-and-coming pitcher that they developed who showed a lot of promise and development and all that type of stuff. You're mad. You get mad when they pay people and you get mad when they don't. You guys are never happy. Bottom line, you guys are never happy. I mean, it's a tug of war with you guys. If they do go on and pay Justin Verlander, dumb decision, horrible contract, yada, yada, yada. If they don't, then it's, they're too cheap to pay Justin Verlander. You guys can't have it both ways. Continue to go down the list. Let's see. Reggie says, the people who don't take this Reds team serious are the fans you'll never make happy. They are going to be negative no matter what. Thank you. That's exactly what I'm talking about. But Eddie Spaghetti on YouTube, the Eddie Spaghetti name, I just can't get. I completely agree with you, Kenner. The Reds absolutely need to add a dominant starter, be it Verlander or someone else. I use Verlander as an example just because of the fact that when I actually saw that the Reds were in on Verlander, or at least that the Reds was being associated with him, it kind of, my ears perked up a little bit. I got a little interested in that decision, mainly because of the fact that when you think about the way the Reds have won games this year, they've won games this year with nothing but youth. The one veteran presence that they have in this lineup, and I know he had a good game yesterday. It's like one good game for every 15, it seems. But Joey Votto for 25 at times, hitting 170. The only veteran presence they have in this rotation is hitting 180. And not rotation, but I mean like the lineup and just in the roster and the dugout in general. But you see my point is like there's not really any veteran presence on this roster at all, be it the rotation, be it the lineup or what have you. Joey Votto is the veteran presence, but Joey Votto's numbers are not dominant. They're not good. Justin Verlander would come in and add to that. We can at least meet in the middle, Reds fans. Let's take Verlander's name out of it. Can we just agree that they need a veteran presence in that rotation? Can we agree with that? Can we agree on that at the end of the day, regardless of whether it's silly to talk about Verlander or not, that the Reds need a veteran presence in that rotation as far as that's concerned? Dennis on Facebook says Verlander, I think, also has a no trade clause, so he would have to waive that to come to Cincinnati. Oh, no doubt. I mean, look, there's a lot of moving parts, but I mean, look, I think that Nick Krall's one of the best GMs in baseball. And if there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of I's to cross and T's to dot, yes, I said it that way, then that's what you got to do. There's nothing easy. The good GMs find ways to get stuff done. Nick Krall's done it to this point. I think he just needs to keep going. Anyways. All right, Kenner and Cav, 1410 Wing AM. We'll be right back.
Listen, stream, watch. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
This story is called The Ugly Truth About Timeshare. If you think you've done your family a favor by buying a timeshare, you need my help. Hello, I'm Chuck McDowell, CEO and founder of Wesley Financial Group. 10 years ago, I started helping folks cancel their timeshare. And in the process, started what's now called the timeshare cancellation industry. Timeshare is the only thing that you can buy that you can't tell me how much it's going to cost or when it's going to end. When you buy a timeshare, you give them a blank check to fill out any amount they want for annual maintenance and assessment fees. The crazy thing is, this never ends. Even when you die, your family's now going to be stuck with this burden. Stop the insanity today. Call my office now. If we take you as a client, I guarantee we'll cancel your timeshare or you'll pay nothing.
Call for your free information kit. 800-497-9090. That's 800-497-9090. 800-497-9090.
Hey Dayton, have you heard? Chevrolet of Troy has you covered for all your auto service needs. We're proud to offer a state-of-the-art dealership with experienced service, parts, and body shop. In fact, we're the only dealership in Miami County with an on-site body shop. We make it easy with experienced professionals ready to diagnose your vehicle with the goal to get you back on the road quickly. That's right, Chevrolet of Troy is your best choice for service, parts, and body shop. 1375 South Market Street and online at ChevroletofTroy.com.
Get in zone, AutoZone. AutoZone is more than a parts store. It's where we help you solve problems like, sorry I'm late, my battery died. And
I need a jump again.
At America's #1 battery destination, you can find the right battery at the right price with options starting at only $89.99. And we offer free battery testing and charging whenever you need it. Get the parts and help you need to get the job done right at AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Restrictions apply.
So you're in the middle of a kitchen update, and you can't tell if that's a faucet stem or a flange. With the Home Depot app, doing doesn't miss a beat. It'll find what you need in a snap, and it'll show you how to find it in store with a tap. Or get it delivered free. For doing that doesn't stop, download the Home Depot app. It's made for doing.
Fill your shower with the fresh, clean scent of Irish Spring and those sensational Irish Spring suds. Irish Spring. When the spring hits you, you're ready. Pick up Irish Spring today.
Dayton sports fans, don't forget to follow and subscribe to ESPN Dayton's YouTube channel. Listen, watch, interact. Search ESPN Dayton on YouTube.
College Football Hall of Famer Keith Byars. He joins us in studio coming up here momentarily. We'll get into some college football NFL talk with him. Last thing on the Reds frontier, again, the trade deadline coming up. And as we were just talking about the Rays a little bit ago, the Rays make a very impressive trade with your Cleveland Guardians, by the way. Aaron Savali just traded from the Guardians to the Rays. Savali on the season, 5 wins, 2 losses with a 2.34 ERA. Started in 13 games this year, struck out 58 batters in 77 innings, and is under team control for the next couple seasons. So it's a very good deal for the Rays, and it just shows you that those, I guess, those types of deals are out there. So to be fair here with the Reds' lack of activity heading into this deadline, okay, there are when we're talking about all this heading into this deadline coming up, and I've been critical that they haven't been as active, it's okay. Are there a lot of moves to be made out there? But then you see a move like this that was just made with the Guardians. It's like, that's the kind of move the Reds could have made. That's the kind of guy they could have added to the rotation. So it's like, there's not, when you look at all the trades that have happened, like Max Scherzer, okay, not once was I like, oh, see, the Reds could have got Max Scherzer. No. And if someone else gets Justin Verlander, I'm not going to be mad at that. I'm just mad at the idea that the Reds can't get Justin Verlander because you can't move on from it. If you need to move on from a top prospect to go get a legitimate arm in your rotation, you do it. You do it because right now this team is a first-place team. Maybe won't have to play in the wild card. Maybe we'll get a legitimate full 7-game series where they're going to, get home field advantage and all this stuff. And it's like you kind of need a veteran presence in that rotation to provide that for you. But if you're looking to move on from a guy, that are looking to get a guy to come in under team control that's young and to provide more pop in your rotation, then that's the guy that they could have got. Anyways, it is what it is. But Michael Shin on YouTube, thank you for chiming in. Rays close to acquiring. Yeah, to be fair, Michael did send that before that deal was announced final. Michael Shin says the Rays number 4 prospect Kyle Manzardo is heading to Cleveland in the deal per Mark Feinsand. So wait a minute. Are you telling me that the Rays sent a top prospect for an arm? Wow, that's interesting, Michael. Michael, you done nothing wrong. I appreciate I'm talking about my buddy, Mr. Evan Maurer, a little bit ago. So, it is what it is. But Mark Shin says Savali has 2 years of team control left, and the Guardians get a great bat in Manzardo. Great deal for both sides. Michael, appreciate that. Thanks for chiming in on that. I'm fascinated by this. Look, I'll be shocked if the Reds make a move today, which because I said that, they will make a move any moment now. But they are a trade deadline. Like I told you, when I was in college, if the paper was due tomorrow and I had 3 or 4 weeks to work on it, I'm starting my paper probably when I get off the air, and I'll turn it in tomorrow. If it's due at noon, I'm turning it at 11:55. I know what procrastination is all about, and the Reds are king of procrastination. They wait till every deal has been done before they decide to see what's left and then kind of go in. That drives me crazy. And I don't think it's because the organization is cheap or whatever it is, but I have a huge problem with the logic of, we don't want to give up any top prospects. So you're willing to get knocked out in the first or second round of the playoffs because you weren't willing to be aggressive at the damn trade deadline. I have a huge problem with that. You're not guaranteed to be in this situation anymore moving forward. In baseball, it is tough. The Reds seem to go on these little playoff appearance runs once a decade. This could be it. Unfortunately, that's just the reality of it. That's my history as a Reds fan. They go on this little streak where they'll make it for 2 or 3 years, and then they're done for another rebuild. We don't know. So you know what? Be aggressive. Go get that deal done as far as that's concerned. Speaking of deals getting done, this is the one that everyone was waiting for me to chime in on, and that's what I'm going to do now. As we currently sit here, David Bell. Everyone been waiting for my take on this David Bell situation. And I'm here to tell you that David Bell's extension that was announced on Friday night definitely caught me by surprise, and it caught a lot of people by surprise. And while a lot of people are being very, very negative about it, Some people are being, well, look how good they're doing this year. It's a good thing. I think it's okay to say that it wasn't a good deal for the Reds, but it wasn't a bad deal. This is a very just middle of the line deal, which maybe this is the face of who the Reds are now, just middle of the line. All right, hey, we're good enough to be in first place at the deadline, but we're not going to make aggressive moves at the deadline to maybe guarantee a World Series. Hey, our manager has lost every single season that he's been here, but you know what? Maybe this year he's been really, really good, so now we're going to keep him around for 3 more. They seem to be obsessed with average, and that's what David Bell is. He's average. He's not horrible. He's just average. And I think my perception on him could change based on how the Reds finish out the rest of this regular season. But here's the deal. I'm not against the extension. I'm against when they did it. If the Reds make the playoffs, they win the division, and they're competitive, and they do all these things to finish out the year, and then you announce the decision come November or whatever, I'm great with that. I'm fine with that. I think that's great. I mean, David Bell showed, hey, when you have talent, he could win you ball games. Great. But let's let him finish out the season. Why do we have to do it just a few weeks after the All-Star break? Why do we have to do it about a week before or just days before the trade deadline? It doesn't make any sense to me. That's the problem I have with it. And for those of you out there who are getting on to me about my take on David Bell not being great, he's not great. This Reds team is they're solid. They're very, very good. But a lot of that has to do with the infusion of young talent. I don't know how much David Bell has to do with a lot of this right now, but I do know this. I haven't complained about David Bell a lot this year. There's been a few games where I haven't been a fan of, but I will tell you this. For those of you out there that think it's wild that a lot of people are down on the idea of the Reds extending David Bell, here, let me tell you, the Reds don't seem to be pleased with it either. The Reds are in a situation where they kind of felt like they had to, and here's why. When your own organization takes the announcement of your contract extension and basically utilizes it within a Friday news dump, how am I supposed to buy in that they're very confident in it either? If you're the Cincinnati Reds, why are you releasing that at 9 o'clock at night? I was doing the TBT on Friday night, Carmen's Crew, Ohio State's team, sitting there with Norm Greavy. My phone vibrates. I look down. It's about 8:30, 9 o'clock, and they announced that David Bell gets the extension. Okay. Why is that a Friday news dump? That means the organization was like, you know what? Let's just get this out of there. People are going to complain. Let's let them complain over the weekend, and then they'll forget about it by Monday because the trade deadline's coming up. So for those of you out there who are upset with people who are down on the David Bell extension, keep in mind, I'm not really down on it, but I'm not for it either. I think the timing of the extension is kind of crap. I don't know why you have to give him the extension now. What if the Reds plummet and just tank the rest of the season? A team that's in first place at the deadline that has playoff expectations. What if they just plummet and miss the playoffs and it's not because of injuries or anything? I'm sorry. That's on the manager. And guess what? You've already extended him. It doesn't make any sense. Why not just wait to the end of the year? David Bell has earned the right for the extension if he could close out the deal for the year. But at the same time, it's like I have no clue why that deal needed to be done then. But I also don't feel bad for questioning it or not being as a big cheerleader for it because the Cincinnati Reds, they used his announcement. They used the announcement of David Bell's contract extension as a Friday news dump. Let's just get it out now. The Reds are on the West Coast. People are going to bitch and complain about it. And then guess what? Come Monday, it'll be all about the trade deadline. They'll forget about it and off they go. And that's where we're at when it comes to David Bell. I don't think it was a horrible move. I was adamant that my hot take was that Aaron Boone would be the next manager of the Reds, and that probably still is the case. I'll be very surprised if David Bell does last the length of his contract, but I think if he makes it to 2 years, I think he'll be the longest tenured manager since Sparky, if I'm not mistaken. We'll see what happens. On the flip side, for me to put a positive spin on this, in today's day and age of sports where people fire managers and head coaches left and right for no damn reason, it is kind of refreshing to watch the Cincinnati Reds treat their version of Marvin Lewis this way, just almost loyal to a fault. But I will say, does David Bell has he earned an extra year with this team? Yes. Yes, technically, yes. I need to see how he finishes out the rest of the year, but my opinion on this might change. But for right now, assuming that the Reds are going to finish out hot the way that they've been all season, then David Bell, yes, does deserve the extension. I would have been fine with it had it been announced at the end of the year, but you can't praise him for not even getting the team to the finish line yet. That's my concern. But they've given him nothing but crap. They've given him nothing but bad player after bad player. The reason I was down on David Bell is because that 2020 season when he had Trevor Bauer and Luis Castillo and he had Sonny Gray, they were 31-30. And I don't count that as a playoff year, by the way. I get into it with Troy and some others on the page. I do not count that year as a playoff year. 2020, that season does not exist to me. I don't care about it. It is what it is. That wasn't a real season. You weren't on the road like you typically are. You weren't playing in front of fans. You played a makeshift, shortened COVID season. Yeah, Like I mean, they made the playoffs and then they embarrassed themselves. But look at the talent that they had in that rotation. Look at the talent that they had in the lineup, the bullpen, the closers, everything. I mean, they had everything you needed to be a legitimate ball club, and they barely made the playoff. Wink, wink. They barely made the playoff, and then they embarrassed themselves when they got there, and Trevor Bauer was, dominant and fantastic for him. So the end of the day, I'm at the point now where it's like, okay, David Bell, I watched you lose or barely win with talent back in 20. I'm watching you win with nothing but rookies right now. That's quite a gap of his, of how he produces as manager of the Reds. Bottom line is this, to recap, I don't mind the extension if it would have come after the season. I have a problem with it coming in the middle of the season, past the middle of the season. He hasn't gotten him anywhere yet. They haven't won anything yet. They're in first place at the end of July heading into August. Super. They can lose all of August and September and finish where we expected them to, not in the playoffs. And then it's like, well, congrats, David Bell, for having a good team for a couple months of the year. No, he didn't need to get that extension then. He could have got it at the end of the year. But we're, it is what it is at this point. But 518-1410, 518-1410, for those watching live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page or the ESPN Dayton YouTube channel, thoughts on the Reds extending David Bell? Are you okay? Are you a fan of the decision of the Reds to extend David Bell? Many of you out there, I saw a lot of the conspiracy theories about the Barry Larkin thing. Okay, let's let this team just develop and get to the point to where they can hand it off to Barry Larkin and all this, maybe. But nonetheless, Doug Toby says, too many opinions on this from people that don't know what the heck they're talking about. Backseat drivers. These people need to stick to their day job. Oh, Douglas, you've been drooling over David Bell for years. You act like because you played baseball for many, many years that your opinion means more than others, even though common sense tells you that managers who lose 90% of their baseball games, and I'll be fair, 72% of their baseball games are great. David Bell's not great. That wasn't why. And Douglas, if it was such a great move, why did the Reds announce it as a Friday news dump at the end of the evening on Friday night? Why? If that was such a great move, don't you want everyone to know? When the Guardians, when they extend Tito and they announce Tito, it was a big day. It's a great day. You want the world to know that we have one of the best managers in baseball. I guarantee you, when the Guardians, if they are fortunate to get another extension with Tito Francona, I guarantee you it will not be an announcement that's done at 9:00 at night on a Friday, trying to bury it heading into the weekend, because they know it's probably not the best of moves to make. I'm just saying, I don't know why you continue to defend David Bell over and over and over. Has he done a great job this year? To this point, yes, he has, Douglas. But let's wait till we get to September and October before we make a decision of whether or not he did what he was supposed to do, and let's get this team to the postseason, because now the expectations have changed. If you're going to say, well, coming into the year, they're not even supposed to be here. Well, if you got him to this point, if they're good enough to get to this point and be in first place, then you're going to be responsible for the fall off if they don't get to the finish line, and the finish line is what it's all about. Doug Toby says, news dump doesn't mean anything to me. Well, of course not, because it's the one thing that proves you're wrong. It's not an overreaction. You don't make that announcement on a Friday night. That is ridiculous. So it's either they have a poor PR team, or they're just not overly thrilled with the announcement of, we got to get David Bell an extension. I think their backs were against the wall. All the momentum of the team. Oh man, I don't think David Bell was definitely not in the plans after this year. They were supposed to lose their 100 games. They were going to move on. They were going to go get Aaron Boone. And now you're stuck with David Bell because the optics of, we can't move on from David Bell. I mean, look at all the winning they're doing now. I guess he's responsible for it. It's not an overreaction, Douglas. It was a Friday news dump. Even the organization wasn't thrilled with the announcement. That's why they buried it on a Friday night. Just saying. 518-1410, 518-1410. That's the number to call and jump in on the conversation. The Reds back in action tonight as they have a huge series coming up against the Chicago Cubs. This one from Wrigley. All right, Andrew Abbott going to be on the mound for David Bell and his Cincinnati Reds. Leading things off for your Cincinnati Reds, Elly De La Cruz will bat first and get the start at third base. Batting second and in center field is TJ Friedl. At shortstop and batting third is Matt McClain, and in the cleanup spot, Jake Fraley. He'll get the start in right field. Batting fifth and at second base, how about this? Spencer Steer. Joey Votto, the Mr. 180. All right, let's see. He'll bat sixth and get the start at first base. Batting seventh is Christian Encarnacion Strand, and he'll be the designated hitter tonight. In left field and batting eighth will be Will Benson. And behind the plate tonight and catching, batting ninth, is Luke Maile. One more time, your lineup for the Reds tonight: Elly De La Cruz, TJ Friedl, Matt McClain, your 1, 2, and 3 hitters. Your 4, 5, and 6 hitters belong to Jake Fraley, Spencer Steer, and Joey Votto. And then Christian Encarnacion Strand, Will Benson, and Luke Maile will round out the lineup at 7, 8, and 9. Andrew Abbott on the mound looking to keep the red streak going. I'm a big fan of Andrew Abbott, by the way. I don't think he gets talked about enough with all of the hype and talk around Christian Encarnacion Strand and Matt McClain and Ellie De La Cruz, and Ellie is big time, right? I think that when you look at all the rookies that have had the biggest impact on the team this season, I don't think the Reds are anywhere near the top of the division if it's not for the performances that we've seen from Andrew Abbott since being called up. I mean, there were stretches where he was having a bad first couple of innings in a game before he would just, kind of get going and then just heat up by the end of the game. We haven't seen a bad outing from him all season. He's a rookie, and he looks like a veteran pitcher when it's all said and done. That's why I said earlier, go get a veteran presence in that rotation at the trade deadline. Andrew Abbott's your number 2, and then let Hunter Green come back and show that he still has that number 1 stuff. And then all of a sudden, you have a lot of really, really good pitching in your rotation, and the Reds are set up for quite some time. Kinner and Cav, 1410 Wing AM. We'll be right back.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash on 1410 ESPN Radio.
O'Reilly. Increase your vehicle's performance and gas mileage with Lucas Fuel Treatment at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply add it to your tank at your next fill-up to eliminate carbon and varnish deposits. Right now, get 2 bottles of Lucas Fuel Treatment for $10. See store for details. Stop by your local O'Reilly Auto Parts store or shop online at O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
If this were a Reese's TV ad, you'd be staring at a Reese's peanut butter cup. And sure, my voice is peanut buttery smooth, but still, you need to see the peanut butter cups, right? No? I can really just say Reese's and you'll go get some? Okay, Reese's. 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 Really working, actually. Reese's. Reese's. I'm on to something. Reese's. Reese's. Reese's.
If you need new roofing, siding, or gutters, skylights, or patio enclosures, if you're a homeowner or business and need someone you can trust, don't take a chance. Enhance with Lance. Lance Roofing and Siding in Fairborn has been satisfying customers since 1993 and hold an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Lance Roofing and Siding, 8460 Dayton Springfield Road in Fairborn. Call for a free estimate at 864-2722. That's 864-2722 or online at lanceroofing.com.
$5,000 sign-on bonus. That's right. My friends at Cordell Transportation are now hiring experienced Class A CDL drivers with excellent work history. If that's you, apply now. Cordell Transportation offers home daily dedicated lanes, no-touch freight, and brand new equipment, plus a $5,000 sign-on bonus paid over 18 months, paid orientation, and company 401k with company match. Apply online at CordellTransportation.com. Cordell Transportation, driven to succeed.
Millions protect their homes with Generac generators. Generator Supercenter, the nation's #1 Generac generator dealer, has franchise opportunities available. GeneratorFranchise.com.
Dayton sports fans, for more local sports content, make sure to subscribe to Dayton's ESPN Radio YouTube channel. And don't miss the Miami Valley's only local sports talk show, The Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. on 1410 Wing AM.
Justin Kinner back with you here on Dayton's ESPN radio station, 1410 Wing AM. 518-1410, 518-1410. That's the number to call and jump in on the conversation. Or you can weigh in on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page, where you could watch the show live. You'll be able to see my big old ugly face right here on the screen and chime in there. All right, so Doug Toby, one of the listeners of the show. Shout out to Doug, by the way. Him and I, me and Doug usually butt heads a lot during the Bengals season, but now here we are with the Reds being relevant in July for the first time in forever. Now we're butting heads over this, and the difference is I'm a big Reds fan. I'm not a huge supporter of the idea of what the Cincinnati Reds did, announcing the contract extension for David Bell at the midway point of the season. Hell, we're past the midway point of the season. Look, has David Bell been? Two things could be true. David Bell was my National League Manager of the Year right now. He will be the National League Manager of the Year. And I think that the Reds know that that's where this is trending, which is why their backs are against the wall. In my opinion, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident was I that the Reds were going to move on from David Bell after this upcoming season? 10. The Reds came into this season. They made no moves in the offseason. There was no expectations of any of these rookies to all just hit their stride at the same time. That's why they're a feel-good story and all this stuff. Like, none of this was expected to happen. The Reds were going to move on from David Bell at the end of the year. I projected that Aaron Boone would be the next Reds manager because you see how things are going in New York. Last year, he was kind of on the hot seat. I think Aaron Boone's going to be done after this year. He's going to be available, and I think it would have made all the sense in the world to bring Aaron Boone in to be the manager of the Cincinnati Reds. It would have been perfect. And then the Reds, of course, everything takes off. A guy that's done nothing but lose since being the manager of the Reds all of a sudden is a part of this magical turnaround. And is it David Bell? I don't know. David Bell happens to be the manager of a team that just has all these rookies on it that all meshed at once. Is he responsible for it? I guess. I mean, I've always made the argument in the past, and RIP to Mark Schlemmer. I miss him, but I remember our biggest arguments on this show were always about, we would always rank the sports of which the head coach or the manager means the most, and the sport that the head coach or the manager means the least. Guess what? I always argued baseball, the manager means the least. And I don't know, on a pie chart, the percentage of, we always do the blame percentage, right? I don't know. I guess if we're going to give credit, I don't know how much of this year's success is because of David Bell. Now, I'm saying that because I've never been a manager. I don't know how to analyze that or take that. I guess, like, if we're just going to chalk up losses to managers, are we just chalking up wins to managers too? I have no clue how good this team would be if David Bell was not the manager. That's all I got to say. I don't know how much credit to give him, but I do know this. This is the first year where they've tasted winning. And no, like I said, that 2020 season does not count. Don't get me started. Doesn't count. That was a COVID year. You played 60 games. You didn't even play in front of fans. It was a makeshift playoff. It didn't make any sense how that whole season went about. And David Bell, that's actually up into this season, the most talented roster that he had. He couldn't even win with that roster. Oh, well, they made the playoffs. They were a game over 500 with the rotation that had Luis Castillo, Sonny Gray, and Trevor Bauer, who, by the way, won the Cy Young that year. How do you have a Cy Young pitcher and Trevor Bauer, Luis Castillo and Sonny Gray as your second and third pitchers, and you're a 500 team and a lineup that had pop all up and down the lineup? That's when they paid for Moustakas, and you had Castellanos, you had Winker, who was still hitting the ball at that time. You had Joey Votto. My gosh, that guy walks on water, according to you guys. So, I mean, what is this? David Bell has lost or has not been very good with talent in the past. So I don't think I'm the devil for sitting here saying that, hey, I think the Reds were wrong for giving him the extension the other night. But I don't think the Reds are very confident in what they did, because if they did feel confident about giving David Bell that extension, they would not have announced it at 9:00 on a Friday night. I mean, they did their manager dirty. They literally took the announcement of his extension and buried it. They gave him the Friday news dump treatment. And as I stated earlier, they gave him the Friday news dump treatment because they knew people weren't going to be happy. They figured we'd just bitch and complain about it over the weekend and then get to Monday, and then boom, what are we talking the majority about? Guess what? The trade deadline. But I'm not letting the Reds off the hook. I wanted to make sure that I thought it was silly to give him the extension when they did. So just saying. Gordon Gross said David Bell stinks. I don't care how many games they win. I don't think he stinks. He's my manager of the year this year. I know it sounds like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I think both could be true. He's my manager of the year this year. I just don't know how wise it was to give him the 3-year extension, because this is the most impressive 6-month stretch of baseball since he's been here. And we're going to ignore the previous couple seasons where his team was just god awful. One of the worst. I mean, one of the worst seasons in Reds history was last year under his belt. And we're going to ignore that because, hey, for 4 months, they've been playing good baseball and man, he's the greatest ever. Not a fan. Not a fan of the move, not a fan of the idea. Scott Campbell on YouTube. The Reds have a shot at the second seed in the NL playoffs and own the tiebreaker versus the Dodgers. That could be big because we know the Braves are going to own the National League when it's all said and done. I thought if the Reds made the playoffs, it was going to be sneaking in the back door through, of course, the wild card. But now it looks like they have a legitimate shot to win this division and to bypass the wild card and to be able to have home field advantage and all these types of things is going to be huge deep into the playoffs. That would be big if they could find a way to get that 2 seed when it's all said and done. Gordon Gross on Facebook says the players have finally produced on the field. That's why they have a better record, not Bell. Well, Gordon, if you say that, and this is why I'm asking, because I already said earlier, I'm not a manager aficionado. I can't sit there and pinpoint and say, hey, that team's good because of that manager. All right, we know who the good managers in baseball are. You want to talk about Francona. I'm the biggest Dusty Baker fan in the world. I think he's the best manager in baseball right now. The Reds were, I'll never forgive the Reds for moving on from Dusty back in the day. But if people ask me, Justin, okay, that team's winning because of Dusty Baker, I'd be like, well, they were winning before Dusty. I'm still a Dusty fan, but the Reds were losing before David Bell. They're losing with David Bell. What does a manager do necessarily? What is a manager doing to the point where we could say that's what separates good managers from bad managers? I'm not going to sit here and pretend to give you a good answer. So that's what I'm asking you guys. Gordon Gross, you say they're producing on the field. That's why they have a better record, not David Bell. Well, can't you say that about all of Dusty Baker's teams too? Well, they're not winning because of Dusty Baker. They're winning because the players are producing. Well, how come we don't do that in other sports? In the NFL, we say, hey, Bill Belichick's the best coach of all time because look what he got Tom Brady to do. But then Tom Brady left and went and did the same stuff with Tampa. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm asking. We give all the credit in the world to coaches, no credit to the players. But then when we don't like the manager, we give all the credit to the players and no credit to the manager. So I'm curious how we assess the impact of that. But Justin Kinner and Kev show right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. We're going to step aside for a few moments. I'm done with the baseball talk for right now. We'll keep an eye on any of the big trades and the rumors kind of circulating. I don't think the Reds are going to get Justin Verlander, but it was an interesting article write-up about why the Reds made sense to land him. But they just need to go out and get a pitcher that can come in and provide some stability in that rotation and more depth in that bullpen, that's for sure. Let's talk a little football. College Football Hall of Famer, former Pro Bowl running back. We got former Buckeye Keith Byars in studio with us. 518-1410. Phone lines are open, and we'll be joined by Keith Byars when we come back. It's Kinner and Kev Show, 1410 Wing AM.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash on 1410 ESPN Radio. ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
Our forecast is clear and 58 tonight, sunshine and 86 Tuesday, Wednesday more sun and a high of 87. Mike Rick Schremp for 1410 ESPN Radio.
Do you or any of your family members, neighbors, or friends own a property that you just want to be done with it? If so, call TurboTrack Realty today for an all-cash offer at 614-470-2000, 614-470-2000. Would it be convenient for you to take what you wanted and leave the rest behind? Great, I'll buy it. Call 614-470-2000. That's 614-470-2000.
When getting the job done right is job one, you need construction equipment that's built right. From compact track loaders to the world's #1 selling compact excavator, the Kubota construction lineup features durable Kubota engines, more comfort, and the versatility to do it all and do it right. Visit your local Kubota dealer today. Go to KubotaUSA.com for full disclaimer.
Stop by Columbus Equipment in Columbus, Dayton, or Toledo to see their full line of Kubota construction equipment, or check them out online at ColumbusEquipment.com.
If you need new roofing, siding, or gutters, skylights, or patio enclosures, if you're a homeowner or business and need someone you can trust, don't take a chance. Enhance with Lance. Lance Roofing and Siding in Fairborn has been satisfying customers since 1993 and hold an A+ Plus rating with the Better Business Bureau. Lance Roofing and Siding, 8460 Dayton Springfield Road in Fairborn. Call for a free estimate at 864-2722. That's 864-2722 or online at lanceroofing.com.
Summer rib season is back, baby, at Frickers. Join us for the perfect pairing of frickin' chicken chunks and baby back ribs together all summer long for only $14.99. Bring the whole family as kids 10 and under eat free from the kids menu all day, every day. Spend time with the family. Enjoy frickin' chicken chunks and baby back ribs all summer long for only $14.99. And kids 10 and under eat free only at the home for fun, food, sports, and spirits, Frickers.
Sports injury, low back pain, or are you interested in improving your performance and getting to the next level? Orion Sports Medicine is truly a unique sports medicine and physical therapy clinic and training facility. We offer a highly educated staff that is experienced working with athletes from the recreational and youth levels to elite professionals. We offer services that include PT, functional assessment, wellness, fitness, return to sports, sports medicine, strength and conditioning, and more at our state-of-the-art facility in Miamisburg. For more information, visit orionsportsmedicine.com.
Need money for after-school and educational programs for your child? Qualifying families can receive $1,000 per child through Ohio's after-school child enrichment accounts. Funds received by a parent or guardian can be used on a number of educational activities, including tutoring, day camps and field trips, language and music lessons, and much more. You can find the full list of how funds can be spent and begin the process of receiving your educational account. Find out if your family qualifies by visiting aceohio.org today.
Sponsored by the Ohio Department of Education, aired by OAB and this station.
Don't give in to that constant joint pain. Take control. Take back your quality of life today with help from QC Kinetics. Hey, it's Keith Byars. QC Kinetics is helping people every day, here and across the country. They're amazing non-surgical treatments that repair and restore damaged joint tissue. They use the latest advances in regenerative medicine, taking your own body's healing agents and concentrating them in the right area where you have that agonizing pain. This incredible, non-invasive approach helps you take back control of your body, relieving the pain in your knees, hips, shoulder, or back. No invasive surgery, no harmful drugs or steroids, and no downtime. Listen, summertime needs to be about having fun and making memories. Golfing, hiking, enjoying the outdoors. Take control now and start living pain-free again. Call now for your free consultation with QC Kinetics, the nation's leader in regenerative medicine. 937-936-0325. That's 937-936-0325.
At Fisher Investments, our clients know we have their backs.
How do your clients know that?
Because Fisher Investments is a fiduciary, the highest standard for a financial advisor. It means we're there for our clients and always put their interests first.
So wait, you do it because you have to?
No, we do it because it's the right thing to do. Our clients trust us with their retirement savings, and we know how important that responsibility is. So we take the time to really get to know them.
Get to know them how?
We make sure we understand their unique goals, finances, health, family, and lifestyle so we can tailor their portfolio to their specific needs. Our goal is to help them achieve a comfortable retirement.
Sounds like a big responsibility. You must make big commissions then, right?
No, we don't sell commission-based products. We have one single transparent fee that's structured so we do better when our clients do better. Visit FisherInvestments.com to find out why investors like you are switching to us. Fisher Investments. Clearly different money management.
Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Express Employment Professionals has put more than 10 million people to work in the last 40 years in all types of industries. Find your next job at expresspros.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Kinner and Kev live here on Dayton's ESPN radio station, 1410 Wing AM, the Kinner and Kev show, live here on Dayton's ESPN radio station. But it's actually Kinner and Keith Byars today. Mr. Keith Byars, welcome. It's been a while.
Welcome. I'm glad to be here. Good to be here. You said Kenner and Kev. I'm like, oh, his name starts with a K, but
It's like,
I'm not Kev. I'm Keith. But I love Kev. Kev's a great guy.
this guy, by the way, folks, he comes in. Oh, I'm tired. I'm like, why are you tired? Because he's been golfing. He's been golfing all over the, not even the country. Where were you? Were you in Aruba?
International. I was in Aruba. Somebody had to go.
Yeah.
Aruba.
So Keith, excuse me if I'm not very sympathetic to your fatigueness lately. Like, it's
I'll get through it. I'll tough it out. Tough it out.
But a lot going on. We were just talking before cracking the mic that, man, it's already, we're heading into August and the Hall of Fame game coming up on Thursday. So football is pretty much here. Practices, everything going to be officially underway for college here, not too long in the future. So, I mean, football's here. High school football practices started today. I think I saw Miamisburg started their practices today, so many others. So,
They didn't have to wait till August 1st officially. I guess this is the week of August 1st.
Well, what's the first week? August 18th or something like that? I mean, we're just a few weeks away from that.
Yes.
So.
I may try to get out and watch it. When does two-a-day start? Do two-a-days start right away in high school football? Do they wait 3 days?
It or what?
I know we didn't have to wait 3 days. I wish we could have, but it was like 3 days of not hitting. But then, wham. But hey, I'm going to try to get out and watch some high school football practices. Just surprise some of the coaches just show up. Because we're going to do a big job of that covering them once the football season gets here right around the corner on Friday nights and things of that nature. And I'll be doing some Thursday night football. And, so I'm ready for football. Football. When is the weekend? The weekend for football is what? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Tuesday, Wednesday? We got football 5 days a week. You got the NFL on Thursday. You got high school on Friday. You got college on Saturday and NFL on Sunday, Monday.
And don't forget about
so you got Tuesday, Wednesday as your weekend for the wives to get things done. The husband there, you get something done now.
But so you came in as we were talking about that David Bell part there towards the end, and I don't really need your opinion on David Bell too much, but I don't know what you caught, what you didn't, but I am kind of curious your thoughts.
I was in the car listening.
So when you have David Bell and you have baseball in general, and I talked about when, RIP Mark Schlemmer, but Schlemmer and I, the biggest debates we'd get into on the show all the time were, I'll never forget when we did rank coaches from importances or rank each sport's coaching responsibilities from most important to least, but which coach means the most to their respective sport. Which sport is coaching the most important? And I always said, and by the way, the managers and coaches, they all mean something, but one sport has to mean less than the other. And I said baseball. Well, he about lost his mind on me. I've never angered him. I angered him a few times, but he about lost his mind on me because that was his thing. He was so I was disrespected.
Well, you said baseball was the least.
It was the least important
over hockey.
I don't know anything about hockey. I'll just be 100% honest with people. I never pretend to be a hockey aficionado, but so are you putting hockey as even less important to be a coach than baseball?
Yeah. So I would just say with the big three, football, basketball,
that's
baseball,
why I did. Yeah.
If you're that way, I can understand how you got upset. But really, it would have to be baseball number 3.
See, now you say it.
Yeah.
If us three were sitting in here, you wouldn't have told him that.
Yeah. No, I mean, because baseball, how many great managers are there in baseball? It never really has been a lot. I mean, in any era, any generation. I mean, think about when I was a kid, growing up in the 70s and 80s, you have respect, for managers. Managers are really good. But, managers always can be fired. I mean, growing up here, Sparky Anderson, the Big Red Machine of the 70s, that would be great.
Mm-hmm.
But when Tommy Lasorda with the Los Angeles Dodgers, that was his contemporary. Did you say Sparky Anderson was better than Tommy Lasorda? You just like, they were both good. And then who else, could challenge those, giant. Look at the Yankees of the 70s. Billy Martin was getting fired, every other year. So overall, you kind of go by decades and you bring it forward, fast forward, to where we are, today. Yes, I would say, Dusty Baker, of his generation, since he's been a manager in baseball, he's the best. Would it no matter, where he's in San Francisco, Cincinnati, Houston, the common denominator,
Chicago.
I mean, he wins. With Sparky Anderson, when he left Cincinnati, he goes to Detroit, he wins. So, but I think the managers, in baseball, when you go from average to good to great, how do you judge those guys? Yes, you need talent on the field, but a good manager can know when it's time for the pitcher to come out, not by the analytics saying that he's already thrown 75 pitches and it's only the 5th inning. No, you know your personnel. You know that locker room. So probably the big 3 sports, The baseball manager, he has to massage egos more so than football, more than football and basketball. They all have to do it to some degree.
Really?
Yeah, but basketball, you only got 12 to 15 guys in the locker room. Baseball, you got 25. Football, you got 53 plus, injuries. You got over 60-something guys. But I'm talking about those, since you play baseball every day, 162 games. That's a lot of games. So you have to massage these egos and keep guys lifted. I mean, you may be on the team and you're a backup outfielder and you haven't taken an at-bat in 10 days, 2 weeks. That's a deal when you do get called in. Go in there and pinch hit. Oh, man, I ain't swung a bat other than batting practice. And now I'm in the game and I got to get a hit. You going to put me in now, coach? Whereas you got to stay sharp. You got to keep those guys sharp. Hey, your job is to go steal a base, and you're going to steal a base in the 8th inning. And, we need you on second base. We're going to pinch right. You have got it. So that's when those managers knows he's got to manage the team, and you keep them guys upbeat each and every day, because baseball is a long, monotonous sport. As long as you win 2 out of 3 games, yeah, you're doing good. You win 1 out of 3 every game, you're not doing so good. But it is a long season. And here we are right now, crucial part of the baseball season. We're going into the month of August. It used to be, once you get to the All-Star break, are you still what do your playoff chances look like by the time you get to the All-Star break? Is it time to make some changes before the trade deadline, which is today? Or we're just going to just ride this thing out and just start waiting for next year and go for it. So that's the dilemma a lot of teams are in. How well do we feel? We're going into the month of August. Every game matters, but now every series matters. Season's about to get real short once you get through August, and then September you start bringing up these rookies. How are we shaped for October? Are we getting to play meaningful October baseball? So these are crucial decisions that the team are making, and which way is the season going to go from here? You're going to see from here, some teams are going to go up and be like, wow, we'll look back come, late September, October, like, look at the changes they made, in July at the trade deadline to help them go to the next level. Or this team sat back and didn't do anything and they floundered and went by the wayside, or they didn't do anything. They trusted the process, what they had, and they thought it was good enough, and here they are in the playoffs. Here it is in October. Mm-hmm. So teams out to answer that question. Where are we? Nobody expected to be, at this part of July thinking, we talked about the Reds in March, April. Here we are at the trade deadline. Where do we think Cincinnati was going to be at? The general consensus was like, the season's about over. What does the future look like? Well, right now, the future's now. And based on how baseball has been with so many teams, getting to make the playoffs, does the best team win the World Series or the hottest team wins the World Series? Maybe it's a combination of both, but you want to be playing your best baseball now, to get that momentum built up. And, Cincinnati's on something. I mean, they caught fire, somewhere about late to mid-June.
Yep.
And it was like, how long is this going to last? They've won 5 in a row.
Yeah, it was chalked up
7
as
in a row. Wow, what is going on, Cincinnati?
Yeah, it's like a fun storyline to now, okay, this is who they are. And by the way, the reason the manager thing got brought up, because the Reds gave David Bell an extension and they announced it late Friday night. And I said, well, he's going to be the manager of the year, but no one expected the Reds to be good this year. So I think that the Reds front office probably anticipated having to
how are you giving him manager of the year already? It's only halfway.
And we're past the halfway point.
We're a little bit halfway.
Look, the thing with MVPs and manager of the years and all this stuff, it's always the best storylines.
Oh, okay.
Am I wrong in that though? Like,
no,
think
you
about
got
that. Like, so that's where I'm at. Like, the Reds are the best storyline in baseball. That's not a homer take. I just think a team in baseball, Keith, we don't ever see worst to first. We watched the Bengals go from winning 2 games 1 year, and a year and a half, 2 years later, they're in a Super Bowl. Like, we
with
see
a chance to win the Super Bowl.
But that's the thing. In football, you could turn it around like that. In basketball, it could turn around in a 2-3 year span. Baseball is not. Baseball is a painful. When you hear the word as a rebuild in baseball, you know that it's going to test your patience over the next 3, 4, 5 years. So to go from worst to first, David Bell's the manager of that team. Of course, he's going to get that. So I think he's the manager of the year when it's all said and done if they continue on this pace. But the thing is, So I think that changed the plans of the Reds. I kept throwing out there that, okay, they're probably going to look at different managers in the offseason and all this, but they announced it, and everyone's like, well, he's only winning because they got good players now. Well, that's why I asked about Dusty Baker earlier.
Yeah.
He's my favorite manager in baseball, Dusty Baker. But I hear this all the time. Well, Dusty only wins because every team he goes to has talent. Well, yeah, you have to have talent to win, but you have to have a good manager.
About Phil Jackson?
The buttons. and it's the Phil Jackson thing. I'm like, I don't think it's a coincidence that Phil Jackson, I mean, now he's kind of seemed to be off his rocker a bit, but you needed a guy like Phil to handle the dynasty that was the Bulls during the 90s. You needed him to handle the dynasty that was the Lakers throughout the 2000s run, the two different I mean, he ran two different Lakers dynasties, throughout that 2000s run.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm talking out of both sides.
I'm thinking about Bill Belichick too. You're talking about great coaches.
Yeah. And we only won because you have Tom Brady. Well, yes, if you go look at every head coach that's won a Super Bowl, you've had an elite quarterback. Like, you can't win without elite quarterbacks. You can't win without
Tampa
talent.
Bay got something to say about that.
So, wait, who?
Brad Johnson.
Well, I mean,
Baltimore Ravens got something to say about that.
You're going to use outliers. Oh, Flacco.
Trent Dilfer.
Flacco won one.
Dilfer.
So maybe
that's a whole other story for another day.
No,
Worst quarterbacks.
The coaches that win with those guys, maybe those are the best coaches. Yeah. Justin Kenner, Keith Byars with you live here on 1410 ESPN Radio. But yeah, you jumped in the middle of all that.
Yeah, I love baseball talk too. Even though, like I said, my team is Pittsburgh Pirates. We were the first team in the majors this year to win 20 games, and we're stuck at 47. That was in early May. We had 20 wins, and look at Atlanta's got 67. We're way back. I mean, look at Baltimore second with 64 wins, but look at the Yankees. That's my second best team. They're in the American League East, and they are in last place in their division with 55 wins. Imagine if they was in another. I mean,
they're in the NL Central. They're
in the thick of it, right?
They would be what? They would be 3 games behind the Reds for first place in the Central. Yeah,
right. Relative.
But it's thank you, because I always said that too at the beginning when the Reds were on a hot streak. I said, I'm not trying to pour water on everyone's parade here, but keep in mind, I was like, the Reds in first place at the time, they would have been in last place, I think, in 2 of the divisions. They would have been in third place in 4 of the divisions. But now it's different. Now they are one of the top teams in baseball record-wise, but nonetheless. But, Keith, we got a lot to get into with you.
Yes, indeed.
We're going to step away for a few moments. When we come back, with everything going on in the National Football League with the devaluation of the running backs, is it just economics, Keith? Is it just supply and demand, or are running backs being disrespected in the league? We'll talk about that and get the take of a former NFL Pro Bowl running back, Keith Byars. He'll stay in studio with us. Also, Ryan Day said it's time to have a conversation, Keith. He said it's time to have a conversation. We should have the conversation about moving the game. We should have the conversation. If Ryan Day is having a conversation and he invites Keith Byars to have that conversation, is Keith Byars having that conversation? We're going to find out, based on the laugh and the facial expressions.
Short conversation. But a conversation nonetheless.
It's fair enough. Kenner and Keith Byars. We'll be right back in just a moment.
It's the Justin Kenner Show with Kev Nash.
Justin, you're awesome, baby.
Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
This story is called The Ugly Truth About Timeshare. If you think you've done your family a favor by buying a timeshare, you need my help. Hello, I'm Chuck McDowell, CEO and founder of Wesley Financial Group. 10 years ago, I started helping folks cancel their timeshare. And in the process, started what's now called the timeshare cancellation industry. Timeshare is the only thing that you can buy that you can't tell me how much it's going to cost or when it's going to end. When you buy a timeshare, you give them a blank check to fill out any amount they want for annual maintenance and assessment fees. The crazy thing is, this never ends. Even when you die, your family's now going to be stuck with this burden. Stop the insanity today. Call my office now. If we take you as a client, I guarantee we'll cancel your timeshare or you'll pay nothing.
Call for your free information kit. 800-497-9090. That's 800-497-9090. 800-497-9090.
Have you lost Ohio Medicaid? At healthcare.gov, you can find a low-cost quality health plan.
Do plans cover doctor visits?
What about emergency care?
And prescriptions?
All covered and more. Plus, with the new law, 4 out of 5 customers can find a plan for $10 or less per month with financial help. Healthcare.gov is here for you. Enroll today for coverage starting the 1st of next month. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Want to feed your family without breaking the bank? Take a trip to Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken and pick up a 16-piece family meal at a great price. With 16 pieces of our classic honey-dipped, hand-breaded Famous Recipe Chicken, 4 craveable large sides, and 8 fluffy biscuits. It's affordable eats done right. Treat your crowd to the best for less with the Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken 16-piece family meal. Only at Lee's. Famous for chicken.
$5,000 sign-on bonus. That's right. My friends at Cordell Transportation are now hiring experienced Class A CDL drivers with excellent work history. If that's you, apply now. Cordell Transportation offers home daily dedicated lanes, no-touch freight, and brand new equipment, plus a $5,000 sign-on bonus paid over 18 months, paid orientation, and company 401k with company match. Apply online at CordellTransportation.com. Cordell Transportation, driven to succeed.
Get the best quality paint at the lowest prices with 11% off everything at Menards. We offer a great selection of Pittsburgh interior and exterior paints and stains that have satisfied customers for over 100 years. Start with a gallon of Pittsburgh Paramount interior flat paint and primer for just $39.95 after 11% rebate at Menards. Good through August 6th. Savings are a mail-in rebate. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Save big money at Menards.
What makes AutoZone America's #1 battery destination? Because they offer free battery testing and charging and reliable replacement batteries. And they've always got your battery solution. Get in the zone, AutoZone.
All right, everybody, we welcome you back. Justin Kinner, College Football Hall of Famer Keith Byars. We are live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page, live on ESPN Dayton's YouTube channel, live on 1410 Wing AM, and streaming live at wingam.com. If you have an Alexa device, make sure you take advantage of that. Just say, hey, Alexa. Oh, hold on. Let me make sure this is unplugged, because every time I do that, she goes crazy during the show.
She's ready to answer
so she's unplugged for right now. But, yes, we have our Alexa right here. Look, it has a little ESPN thing on it. Where's the camera? There we go. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, your Alexa device, just say, hey, Alexa, play 1410 ESPN Radio. Or, hey, Alexa, play the Kinner and Kev Show. Hey, Alexa, play the Keith Byars Show. All of that programmed in there. Take advantage of that. Pretty cool. All right, so media days, Big Ten media days last week, Keith. And, of course, there's always going to be headlines that come out of that. That's why, as media, we love media days, because we know that I always call this scandal season, by the way.
That's a good one.
Because media sits back, they have these stories, and they sit back on them, and they wait to break them out until right before media days, because then that's how their work gets blown up even more, right?
Gotcha.
That's why, it's the gotcha journalism. I mean, some of it is, silliness on these programs. I mean, the Northwestern thing, Michigan, all this other stuff going on, Minnesota, some weird stuff coming out. It's like, get a grip, people. Like, what is happening? I said, look, I know that the drama goes on in every conference, but it just seems like the Big Ten programs, just the programs especially that aren't really known for winning football games, they're in the news for all the wrong reasons. Northwestern, Minnesota, give me a break. It's annoying, but that's not what I wanted to bring up. Last week, the big headline that really impacted Ohio State fans the most was a comment that was made by Ryan Day when he was asked about the possibility of preparing not just for Michigan one time, but, potentially facing Michigan back-to-back weeks. The last 2 years, Keith, so next year when they scrap divisions, in the Big Ten, obviously it's 1 versus 2 in the Big Ten and the Big Ten championship game next season. Well, if that format would have existed the last 2 years, we would have had Ohio State, Michigan in the last 2 years in the Big Ten championship game back-to-back weeks. Ryan Day, gave his thoughts on that, but the quote that stood out to everyone is he said, I think it's time that we have a conversation regarding moving the game, moving it up in the season because of the possibility of those two teams playing each other in back-to-back weeks. There is no other rivalry. There's no other matchup in college football that would get that type of treatment as far as considering moving it so that they don't play each other in back-to-back weeks. You've played in that rivalry. It means everything to you. You're a fan of Ohio State. You're a Buckeye at heart. When you hear Ohio State's head coach Ryan Day say that discussion should be had about moving it. Your initial thought is what?
No. That's my initial thought. That's my medium thought. That's my long-term thought. No. That is something generations of us have grown up with that game being the last, game of the season, whatever date it is on the calendar. It's your last regular season game of the season. And that means something. That's also, goes into the allure of the rivalry. Now, when you're bringing in these other teams into the division, so you're expanding out, I know you have to, roll with some of the punches. So, yes, there will be a possibility of Ohio State, Michigan being twice in a year. Once is enough, but twice is asking an awful lot. But we have got to realize that that's going to happen for the greater good. But who's to say that we're both going to be good at the same time? I mean, I should say that they're going to be good at the same time. And if it is, so be it. If we have to just adjust. If we played them in the last game of the season, we beat them. Well, when we played them in the last game of the season, we beat them. And if we got to turn around and do it next week, we do that too in the Big Ten championship. But, and I was talking off air. I don't think that this is going to be a long-term the solution isn't the word I'm looking for, a long-term deal. With UCLA and USC coming into the Big Ten, I think that I even said it as much last year, we are taking steps closer and closer to having a model of what the NFL is. When I say that, I mean 2 conferences, AFC, NFC. They call them whatever they want, but both conferences have, 4 divisions. They have the East, the West, the North, the South, and all that stuff. So we'll have that too. Instead of calling it AFC North, it'll be college football North. We will have those divisions. So it just doesn't make a lot of sense long term, for Ohio State's wrestling team and softball teams to have to travel cross country out to UCLA, then fall and come back, and then maybe next week go back to USC, and vice versa. You get your basketball team, playing at UCLA on a Thursday night, then coming back cross country, having to play Rutgers on Saturday. All that travel, it doesn't make sense for long term. I think it's only going to be a short term before all the conferences get together, and we will have a Power 5 plus some major independents come together and say this is going to be the new world order of college football, college basketball. College sports. So I don't really think this is sustainable. But go back to the original with Ohio State, Michigan playing back-to-back weeks. Yeah, it bothers me, but I can handle it. As long as we win both those games. It takes an awful lot to get up for one of those games. But when in advance it's a possibility of playing two, hey, you just have to roll with the punches. Ohio State beats them in the regular season. Now you got the Big Ten championship. There's still people at that time, they'll both still be playoff teams because if you make your conference championship, you'll still be playoff. So I guess there'll be an outside chance they would even possibly a third time.
Well, that's what
so
Gordon
that could happen.
Gordon Gross on Facebook just said, they could play 3 times a year, potentially.
For sure.
I threw this out there when we talked about this last week when it initially came out. I said, look, we as Ohio State fans are very confident. We assume right away that Ohio State's going to be in the Big Ten championship game every year. Heck, even with Ohio State losing to Michigan the last 2 years, with this new format starting next year, they would still be in the Big Ten title game. It would have been Ohio State, Michigan the last 2 years. And many anticipate that would be the same case this coming up season, regardless of the result of the game. But, the guy that should have the biggest problem with all of this is, and I know you don't sympathize with this guy, but I'm just saying, if I'm Lincoln Riley and I hear that quote, I'm like, Ryan Day, listen, I'm going to help you sleep at night. You don't need to worry about playing that team up north 2 times in a row, back-to-back weeks, because you're going to have to worry about playing us in the Big Ten championship game. Like, if I'm Lincoln Riley, just the arrogance to assume that it's going to be Ohio State, Michigan, and then to give Michigan the credit of putting them in the Big Ten title game every year. Michigan, Harbaugh, he's about to head back to the NFL after this year. All right. He's been trying to leave the last 2 years. He's going to be back in Michigan, and then they'll slump and decline and then go back to what they were before he got there. And then we don't have to worry about this. But, it was one of those.
There's not that many teams that have even played in the Big Ten championship.
No, but this new format, it's obviously the more teams in the conference, it's going to shrink it a little bit because it's always the same teams at the top every year. With a couple rotations here and there, as you always talk about, it's cyclical with programs like Iowa, where once every 4 years, you get enough of the upperclassmen that have stuck around long enough that all of a sudden that's the best team they've had in a 5-year stretch, and they have a shot. Wisconsin and teams like that. So, yeah, it's going to predominantly be Ohio State, Michigan. I would assume USC at the top, and then your cyclical teams, like you could add UCLA in there maybe, but
yeah, I mean,
Iowa
Michigan State's played in the Big Ten championship game. Penn State has played in it. I think both those teams only played in it once, if I'm not mistaken. And
Michigan State and Michigan are the only other non-Buckeye teams in the Big Ten to play in the playoff itself in the 4-team format, of course. But Purdue's played in a few. Or no, was that their only one last year? That might have been their only one, but at least in the college football playoff era.
Iowa's been there a couple of times. Wisconsin's been there a few times, of course, the Northwestern. Minnesota hasn't gotten there. Nebraska hasn't gotten there. So those programs, they should take offense too to what Ryan Day said. Maryland, Rutgers, the list goes on. But, to prove it, but Indianapolis is supposed to be our second home. If you're an Ohio State fan, that's where we're supposed. One of our goals to eventually win a national championship.
You mean Vegas? Because that's where this thing's heading. That's where the Big Ten's head is Vegas. Like that's my LA or Vegas. That's they gotta. Ohio State's the brand in the Big Ten, but if USC starts taking off, you can see the Big Ten start flirting with them a little bit more, which would be irritating. But that's a possibility. But Lincoln Riley and Ryan Day very similar.
Well, I don't think. I kind of like that, what you just said. I think it ought to go around. You move the Super Bowl around, move the Big Ten championship around. I think if to help the West Coast, go to Vegas, go to Indianapolis, go to Detroit. I think it should be rotating. Some of those three, because that's just not just the game, but it's the revenue, that's associated with the game. So I think it should move around to to more and more places. So I think that would make the Big Ten different, from the other conferences. Hey, this year we're going to Indianapolis. Next year we're going to Las Vegas. The year after that, hey, we're going to Detroit. And we're covering the game. We don't mind being sent out there to note to the superiors. Send us out to Vegas to cover the Big Ten championship game. Just send us out there for what, 5-6 days to cover that?
Yeah.
you can
and I'm sure,
just put it out there.
We're just printing money.
Just put us out there. We can handle 5-6 days of Vegas. Covering the Buckeyes, covering the Big Ten championship.
If you're just tuning in, it's the Justin Kinder Show with Kev Nash, 1410 Wing AM. Kev Nash out today. We got Keith Byars hanging out with us here, College Football Hall of Famer. Keith Byars Show Wednesdays from noon to 1. It'll move back to its originally slotted programming time on Mondays once the NFL season gets here. So we're excited about that. NFL Hall of Fame game coming up on Thursday. I'll pick your brain on that. I know Kev makes fun of me for getting excited about it. I'm like, it's football. That's why. I know it means nothing. To hear the crack of the pads, to just watch NFL games on TV is huge. But last thing on this Michigan thing, and then we'll move on. But one of the reasons is because they talk about, the match. Obviously, that game is just different than any other game on the schedule. Even if you're playing a Penn State team that's better, the Michigan game feels bigger against a less talented Michigan team than a more talented Penn State game, because that's just the nature of that rivalry, right? The fatigueness that goes on with preparing for that matchup and all this. You've played in that. If you had to play Michigan in back-to-back weeks, what impact would that have on you as a player? Do you at least see the concerns that are being brought up? Well, is there any justifiable concern as to why they should move the game, even though you don't want it? Is there anything that you've heard that you're like, okay, I could see that, but still no?
No. I'm thinking as a player, I lost to them twice. And I was ready to play them on Sunday.
Right. Yes.
So the bitter part of losing to them is waiting a whole nother year to play it. So if you can get them again in 7 days, all of them are better. To get that, because I still, I'm working on my second year in a row with that nasty taste in my mouth, us not beating Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
So it hurts. I was in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania 2 weeks ago. Michigan fan, go blue. Go blue. I'm like, he saw my house, their hair covers. I had to take it. It just, I have to take little things like that.
And those are the things I've said.
Just grit my teeth and just I should take it.
So, and I've said that too about Ryan Day. If anyone, Ryan Day should want to play them right away, because all the hot seat, Ryan Day on the hot seat for losing to Michigan, last 2 years. Imagine if a week later you get the last right? You get the last laugh. All right, you have that whole week where, like you said, it's just grinding at you. It's horrible. You've lost to that team up north. Well, instead of waiting 365 days to have a chance to redeem it, now you have 5 days to prepare and all right, let's just get this bad taste out of our mouth. And at the end of the day, we win. We're moving on to the playoff and off we go. So there is that element to it too. I just, with all the buildup and makeup of that game, I can't comprehend. That's why I wanted to talk to you. You've played in it. Is it mentally exhausting to play that game, Keith? I don't get it.
It is. I mean, you look for, that's one of the reasons why, one of your top 5 reasons why you chose Ohio State.
Yep.
I lost to them I beat them as a freshman. I lost to them as a sophomore. And my sophomore year, I scored 2 touchdowns that game, come up short. And I'm like, okay, so my junior year when we beat them, it took me 3 touchdowns. I said, well, 2 wasn't good enough. I need to make sure we win. Shit. So I scored 3 touchdowns, beat them 21-6. So that was still a long year. I mean, my freshman year when we beat Michigan, going into off-season training, hearing some of the upperclassmen talk, like, man, but not, training off-season conditioning is rough, but it's even more worse when you lose to Michigan. So after my sophomore year, when we lost to Michigan, I could see the difference in the intensity level of the coaches and our little digs. They said, you don't just beat Michigan on Michigan week, you beat them all year long. So I had to hear that in my ear, but, come up short about against Michigan. So I couldn't wait to play them, the following season to get that out of my mouth, a taste out of my mouth. So if that is a possibility, that's not going to be a deal breaker, for us. Hey, we beat them this Saturday. If we got to come back in 7 days and beat them again, we're going to beat them again. Even worse. That's the winner's mentality. Loser mentality is, oh, we got to play them twice. We got to play them again. That's not the right mindset to have. I mean, and, so that's something, nobody's perfect. And I would say Ryan Day's not perfect. I think in retrospect, upon further review, I think he would look at that differently. And just, that's not even your area of the contention to worry about. It's time to have a conversation. Hey, let people above your pay grade talk about that, and then they'll still come back. The general consensus be like, no, leave the game alone.
Do you think Urban, where would he be on that? Would he be agreeing with Ryan Day, or would he be more where you're at?
I think Urban would stay. He would be with us.
And I don't think it's moving. I don't think Ryan Day.
That's just too much.
Yeah.
No. I mean, imagine the Ohio State-Michigan game in week 5, and we got another game week 7. Like, wait a minute. I mean, after we beat Michigan,
there better be a bye week after that.
Yeah, we did a bye week. No.
Yep.
No. Leave it alone. I think we're stretching too much at that time.
All right. Justin Kinner, Keith Byars with you here on 1410 ESPN Radio. So I had a take last week that was aggressive, and people said, I bet you if Keith was sitting across from you, you wouldn't say it. So I'm here to prove those people wrong.
Okay, here we go.
Now, you know how much I respect you, and I respect your NFL experience and everything, but and it's not that I'm disrespecting the running back position, but I'm also looking at today's NFL and seeing how teams build their rosters and how teams and I always say when they say that they don't value running backs anymore, it's not that I don't think the league values running backs anymore, but I don't think they financially prioritize running backs anymore.
Well, that would all be one and the same.
Well, I mean, but you got to spend your money wisely. And if you only have and Mike Brown was, I love that he's the pie chart last week. He used the pie chart example. Well, you have a pie. And if you give a big chunk to this individual, you have less pie to give to everybody else. And I'm like, well, I want to make fun of that, but he's not wrong. It's a perfect analogy. But if you look at the blueprint for how teams are building their rosters now and winning Super Bowls and going on playoff runs, their best player is not their running back. And their best player, their highest paid player is not their running back either. And that's what's happening now. Yeah.
You said their best player is not their running back.
Mm-hmm. Look at the Browns. Their best player is their running back. They can't do anything. The Titans, they can't do anything.
Oh, I misunderstood what you were saying.
What?
You said their best player is not the running back.
Yeah,
Cleveland Browns' best player is the running back.
Yeah, and look where they're at. Well, not now with Deshaun
But remember, you've heard me say this thousands of times. Football is the greatest team sport there is. No one can have individual success without the help of others. But now that running back, you're acting like. I mean, I'm not saying you per se, but they're acting.
No, it's fine. Like I'm on the side that you're probably against.
I'm just speaking to you. They're acting like the running back. He's so replaceable. Running the ball is not a specialty act. It's devalued and you look down upon it. But so is freaking blocking. Oh, you mean blocking is such a great high level skill? is more valuable than a running back? What about throwing a football? Oh, that's so special. Look, he can throw a football. That's not a specialty skill, and so running the football is not specialty. Every person's job out there is special, from the kicker to the punter to the right guard to the linebacker, defensive back. They're all special. That's what they're all 14, all 11 individual or 22 individual, positions, but they come together as a whole to make us all be successful. You cannot run the football if nobody's blocking. So you need those linemen, offensive linemen up front, making, giving the quarterback. You can't run or throw the football without an offensive line. The Bengals saw that Joe Burrow's first year. They was like, man, they got to get him some help. He only played King. They're getting him killed. Oh, so they went and got offensive line help. So now you take away the offensive line. How good is Joe Burrow? We don't want to spend money on offensive line. Well, why wouldn't you?
They do it now, but it took
so now you don't want to spend money on the running back. All running backs are not equal.
And then they do get
all offensive linemen are not equal. All quarterbacks are not equal, but it's okay to overpay quarterbacks. When Derrick Henry signed his contract with Tennessee, I was so upset. I'm like, why would you take one penny less than Ryan Tannehill? You are way more important to that team than Ryan Tannehill. Nick Chubb is the most important player on the Cleveland Browns team up to this point. We're going to see what Deshaun Watson is going to help bring to that team. But Nick Chubb, he deserves to be the highest paid Brown. Right now, he's not, because they just signed Deshaun Watson last year. But, Cleveland's going to go as well as far as Nick Chubb goes. They're not going to have the success that they really want to have success without somebody running that ball, especially in the North, in Cleveland. Come December, you just can't just sit back and throw the ball 50 times a game.
So for one, I don't think the NFL is saying that Derrick Henry doesn't matter, Nick Chubb doesn't matter.
Yes, Ezekiel Elliott, he's not in camp.
But there's a cheaper. So
that's a conspiracy.
Yeah, possibly. But
collusion.
If you look at, it's so hard to find quarterbacks in the NFL, right? It's not hard to find running backs in the NFL that can produce. That's the problem. So you're moving on. You're drafting running backs that can come in and be 1,000-yard backs right off the bat. I mean,
but 1,000-yard backs is not the barometer no more.
But
you're playing 18 games, it's easy. It's not as hard to get 1,000 yards.
But
it's
not. It's only like 57 a game.
That's just one barometer they're judging a running back by. What else does that running back bring you? Thing that Ezekiel Elliott doesn't get enough credit for is his blocking ability. Picking up that blitzer to give the quarterback that much time to throw. The running backs have to know as much as the quarterbacks, believe it or not. They have to read defenses. They're standing next to the quarterback a lot of times, so they know when to break hot, when to block the blitzer. It's a lot that goes on in the running back they do not get credit for, more so than offensive line. So they know as much as the quarterback. When the quarterback's out there spouting out, okay, well, who's the Mike? Okay, he has to point out who the Mike linebacker is, because that's all about protection. Sometimes the running back helps the quarterback. Wait a minute, call 52 to Mike, because then we know who Sam and Will are. I know I'm getting a little technical with some of my football talk, but that's who we are. But that's why we get underestimated and marginalized and devalued, because they don't want to pay that. So you see Ezekiel Elliott with Dallas last year making a whole lot of key blocks and running football. But then when they bring in Troy Pollard, now Zeke's on the sideline, then they call him plays they know this is going to work. They've been scouting the defense. They know it's going to work. But then it's obvious passing time. Get Troy Pollard out, because they're going to blitz, and he ain't big enough. He ain't got enough ink in his pen to be able to block that linebacker. Yeah, Ezekiel Elliott can do it. And he doesn't get credit for it at the end of the day, because it doesn't show up in stats. But when you watch the game and you study the game, you know how important running backs are to teams' success. So they say, well, let me just get, instead of paying one guy X amount of dollars, we'll pay three guys that much, and then we just settle for what they.
But isn't that good business?
No.
If you're in a salary cap league,
in a salary cap
league,
it's like when I call it a business, you call it game. I call it game, you call it business. From the old movie North Dallas 40.
Your team is known most for doing that than anyone else. Your Eagles. Don't be bringing up my Cowboys.
I'm upset with my Eagles too when they do it.
Okay.
I mean, Miles Sanders had a career year, and we didn't even try to sign him. So we're all guilty. I don't have no cut card.
All right.
We're guilty of that too. I'm like, go get Ezekiel Elliott. You let Miles Sanders, that's why you draft him, so he can be good. He's good enough now. We don't want to pay him for long term. Why'd you even draft him? Why do you don't want to sign a second contract or a third contract with you? You don't see him being your guy for the next 8 to 10, 12 years, whatever it is. No.
So I bring this up mainly because, okay, let's say you pay the running back their worth. Okay, fine. But you're paying the running back their worth at the exception of who, though? Because if you give him all that money, now you're going to have to miss out on money to another key position. And in a passing league, does it make sense to give
a passing league or is it a winning league? You want to win games, you just want to throw the football around.
But look at the teams that are winning Super Bowls. They're the elite pass games, though.
No, really, because that's all you're doing is throwing the ball.
I mean, you look at Patrick Mahomes.
But how did Kansas City win the Super Bowl last year? The Super Bowl game. How did they win it? Running the football
with a rookie running back.
I don't care what running back. They ran the ball
because they had money to put elsewhere on the defense and
they
others.
Ran the ball. Yeah. They didn't throw the ball back.
They're not devaluing the running game.
They did not throw themselves back into the Super Bowl. They ran themselves back into the Super Bowl. By hand the ball off to Pacheco and this. They ran themselves back into the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
that's how they. So they know they need to run the football. So that would be an quote unquote outlier. But is that the same success? No, they know they need to run the football because Pat Mahomes not always going to be on this point. So they was able to run the football. So, yes, that helps strengthens the ownership position about you don't have to pay that guy that kind of money. You don't have to pay him that kind of money. So you mean tell me, so I'm the New York Giants. It comes down to who am I going to pay, Saquon Barkley or Daniel Jones? Oh, let's get Daniel Jones papered up. Let's pay him and make
Saquon ridiculous. 40
sweat.
mil.
Are you kidding me? I mean, so when I'm old enough to remember when I came into the NFL, the best players on the team made the most money, not the position on your team. If you're one of the best players, hey, pay him. Just because you're the quarterback, don't mean you got to be the highest paid player on your team. That's some structure that the NFL owners and stuff came up with in the early 90s, and by the mid 90s, it was in the full effect, and by 2000, it was all done. That's how they separate players. That's how they separate the locker room. Because remember I said one thing about football, it's the greatest team sport there is. But the owners don't want you to be a team. They want to, keep division in a locker room so everything can answer up to them. So no matter how bad your quarterback is, he's going to be the highest paid player on your team. If he's not this year, he will be next year by his second contract.
Yep.
Is that always true? So if they talk about being smart financially, hey, pay the best players on your team. If the quarterback is not so if Brock Purdy ends up starting out in San Francisco, he's going to be making more than Bosa. He's going to be making more than Samuels. You're going to automatically you're going to just tear his contract up and make him the highest paid player because he's a starting quarterback.
Oh, that's what Kev's argument. Is stop basing it off of position.
Let the quarterbacks prove themselves.
Kev's argument is stop making it about positions, and it's just the best players get the most money.
That's how you financially spend your money.
Well, I agree with that 100%, but my takes always come from not what I think it should be, but it's, based on the way the NFL operates, I understand
because they're
why.
A copycat league in more ways than one.
But what do you copycat? You're copycatting the teams that are winning.
No, they're copycatting teams' financial books. That's what they're copycatting. Instead of what you said, Kev and I just said, pay the best players on your team. Hey, I don't care if you play left tackle. I don't care if you play defensive end. If you're the best player on my team, I'm going to pay you accordingly. It's supposed to be based on your performance. Your pay should be based on your performance. Now, you had too good a year, and now you do some money. Well, we don't want to pay him that. Let somebody say, let's cut him. All right, wait a minute. And I think they should have guaranteed contracts in the whole NFL. Not a percentage, 100% guaranteed. Then you would see owners spend that money a little bit differently. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott, I believe he signed a 5-year, $96 million contract with the Cowboys, 3 years ago or 4 years ago. They cut it. He didn't see all that $96 million. Well, he saw a lot of it, but he didn't see what he was guaranteed.
And Joe
He didn't see the
Mixon had
guarantee.
to take a $5 million pay cut to stay in Cincinnati. We had Icky Woods on last week, and Icky said, well, that was a stand-up move by him. I was like, actually, it was just he had no choice because if he didn't take the pay cut, they were just going to cut him. So at least he saw $5 million of this. But yes, like
it's ridiculous,
that's
man.
where it's at. But would you agree, though, that of all the key position players like wide receiver, quarterback, running back, that there's not as many dominant wide receivers coming out of the draft. There's not as dominant quarterbacks coming out of the draft, but running backs, you can get a dominant running back in the late rounds. So you don't have to waste top draft picks to get a running back. You could pick Pacheco was out of Rutgers was like a 5th or 6th round pick or whatever it was. The thinking is okay, well, we can get running backs late in the round. We don't need to extend our running back. It's hard to get wide receivers. It's hard to get quarterbacks. It's hard to get pass rushers and shut down corners, the most important key positions there. Running back is one of the key positions, but there's more running backs to choose from. It's easier to go replace your running back in the production than it is any other position out there because there's just more running backs available.
I disagree with that. How many quarterbacks are elite in the NFL? You know, we had this discussion, Molly.
Where's your list? I had it printed over here somewhere.
It's only 5 elite quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Really, 4 or 5 elite quarterbacks.
But you get an elite quarterback.
You got Pat Mahomes.
Yep.
You got Jalen Hurts. You got Joe Burrow. You have Josh Allen and Justin Herbert.
Dak?
No,
I just did that. For
I know
your
you
face.
did that for my face.
I've made your face crunch a lot today. So
no, not Dak, not Dak, not Dak. So
Dak is whack.
We are talking. Really, I just changed my mind. It's only 4 quarterbacks. I'm working on my list. I'm down to 4. I'm down to 4 quarterbacks. Josh Allen just dropped. Aaron Rodgers is not elite.
Ooh,
Lamar
that's
Jackson
my guy.
is not.
Aaron Rodgers is my guy,
but he's not elite right now. He's not elite right now. He has to prove he's elite this coming year, going into the season. He's not elite. He hasn't. He was elite last year.
Well, no, they took his best receiver away. You take.
He was not elite. You still make.
He was MVP 2 years ago.
He was not elite.
But no, he wasn't. You took his top receivers away.
He's not elite. Not elite. Not elite. So I got 4 elite quarterbacks. There's not 4 elite running backs in the NFL.
There's 4 elite running backs.
Thank you. Pay them.
But
are they above average running backs in the NFL? Yes. Pay them. Are there average running backs in the NFL? Yes, there is. So every position has elite, and they got above average, and they got average, and you got below average. At every position. You know, do the Cincinnati Bengals have an elite offensive tackle, left or right tackle? They got any elite ones that won the top 2 or 3 in the league?
And when they put their money in Orlando Brown.
I didn't say how much they put their money in. Do they have an elite player at that position?
No.
But they're paying them.
You know, Orlando, some would consider him up there, and I guess
no. When I say elite, I mean you top 4 or 5 in the league. Well, we all got to have you. Is he like Orlando Pace of his position?
He's Orlando Brown. He ain't Orlando Pace.
He ain't Orlando Pace. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So it's okay to pay these quarterbacks all this money. I mean, Derek Carr, how much money has he made over there? Kirk Cousins.
But like those are very effective quarterbacks. There's not a lot of those quarterbacks in the NFL. It's harder to find a
we can find them.
But it's tougher to find a Derek Carr or a Kirk Cousins than it is to find a Zeke or anyone else, like a dominant running back.
Sometimes you need to change your pace. Look at Geno Smith. Where did we have Geno Smith last year? We had him. New York wasn't the place for him. He goes out to Seattle. Now, Geno, he's not elite. I'm not saying that. He's not even above average.
But he has weapons.
But he's average.
With a rookie running back.
Geno, he's got Jackson Smith and Jigba this year.
Yep.
Who knows what they're going to do in Seattle? He may prove a whole lot of more people wrong and say, y'all thought I was good last year. I'm much better this year. And he's older in his career. And he's ready to ride him off. So the running back position, has it been devalued? Absolutely. And we ought to just say the tailback or whatever. What about the fullback? You talk about devalue? That's a freaking ghost.
It doesn't exist anymore.
It doesn't exist. I mean, fullback. I mean, teams even have a fullback. You know, when with Justin Shrike from San Francisco, I'm like, he's a fullback. Wow, he's in the Pro Bowl. I'm like, how is he? How many plays has he made? I mean, he's a blocker. I mean, he's a good player.
The fullback position still
They still have him in the Pro Bowl. That's the easy. I'm like, geez, really? Teams don't even have a fullback yet. They get that position, but that's a conversation for another day. but that is still a position that needs to come back. I play fullback.
The league's cyclical. It's a passing league now. Will it revert back to that? I think it's balanced
Hopefully
now,
someday.
but it's not. It's financially a passing league. But if you watch the game, it's still a balanced league. You still have to have the run. To your point earlier, talk about the elite quarterbacks, the elite running backs. It goes, yes, there's definitely elite running backs in the league, but all the money goes towards the guys that they feel help them win a Super Bowl more than the others. So, for instance, the Bengals get Joe Burrow. They're in a Super Bowl 2 years later. The Browns have had Nick Chubb from the beginning. They've made the playoffs once.
But let me just throw this in real quick. I don't mean to cut you off. But we talk about elite running backs, and we said they need to have 1,000+ yards to be elite. We need this guy to run for 1,400 yards, score another 10 or 15 touchdowns, and maybe we could continue to pay him. He's not going to ever be MVP because we just don't like to give running backs MVP. So what makes an elite quarterback? Does he have to throw for 4,500 or 5,000 yards and 20-something or 25 or 30 touchdowns or 40 touchdowns? Would that make him elite? What is that winning the game? Because you could throw out certain numbers out there. So I hate when they use things, for as a barometer. Well, he didn't run for 1,000 yards. He didn't run for 1,500. He's having a bad year. But does a quarterback have to continue to throw for 5,000 yards to have a good year? 30 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. When he doesn't do that, does that mean it's time to replace him? He's not worth it. I need at least 4,500 yards out of my quarterback position, and I need 25 to 30 touchdown passes, and I need no more than 4 or 5 interceptions. Otherwise, he's throwing too many interceptions. It ain't worth it. It ain't worth it. I mean, they teasing still here to Jameis Winston. He's 30 for 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. Oh, okay.
I use that one a lot.
Yeah, I know you do.
He has 30 for 30.
What would be too many interceptions for an elite quarterback? He just threw a Hail Mary at the end of the game. That interception doesn't count. Oh, but it's okay. What if I fumble at the end of the game? Does that count? Or at the end of the half? They so numbers only tell you half the story of how valuable a guy is. So you still have to be a talent evaluator to know what you have and what you don't have. I mean, I look at, go old school running back for the Cincinnati Bengals, Corey Dillon. I thought Corey Dillon was an excellent running back.
Franchise's all-time leading rusher.
And Cincinnati never put enough around him at the time for the whole team to have success. He goes to New England, win the Super Bowl, and they're like, man, y'all was slipping on that. And same with the fullback that played here in Cincinnati. He goes, I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. He goes to New England and win a couple more Super Bowls out of Nebraska, fullback. I'm looking right at it. I'm just drawing a blank on his name. But they see value in those type of players. And there's value in the running back position, all the time. And right now, we're in an era right now, they just don't simply want to pay running backs. They don't even really want to draft running backs in the first round. Pretty soon, they're not going to draft them by the third or fourth round. It was just signed as free agent.
That's why it was a big deal. 2 running backs went in the first round this year, but that's not to counter your point. They drafted 2 running backs in the first round this year, but it was considered bad draft picks, right? Like Bijan Robinson going to Atlanta, which, by the way, I love him in Atlanta.
Yeah, how was he not a top 5 pick?
I love him in Atlanta, but it's but it's because teams, when they don't have a quarterback, they're not going to take the better running back. They'll take an average quarterback in the draft for a chance of that quarterback being great in the NFL over a Bijan Robinson who can come in and be a stud right off the bat. The only other point I'll make that I always look at, and again, it's not, by the way, I know there's elite running backs in the NFL, and I think that the leagues look at them and they know but it's like they're not willing to financially prioritize them. If you look at all the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, none of them play with an elite running back. And I don't think that's by design. It's because, hey, if we're giving our quarterback all of our money, we're going to spend all of our money to protect our quarterback, and we're going to spend all of our money to make sure our quarterback has weapons. And that's kind of like, look at the Bengals right now. Joe Mixon, when they were horrible, Joe Mixon was a top 5 running back in the NFL. Joe Mixon was their only and best weapon during the Andy Dalton tail end run there. And then they get Joe Burrow, and then what do? Well, thanks. You were our back on our worst teams, but now we're either going to cut you or you're going to take a pay cut. Go look at the Josh Allen, look at Patrick Mahomes. I know you're weighing on Josh Allen, but no one's playing with an elite running back.
But look at your Dallas Cowboys. Was Troy Aikman elite?
But that was a different time. That's back when they valued the run game. They valued, even Emmett set out.
It had an elite running back to go with him.
Even Emmett had to sit out, though, to get paid that one time. So it's not like they were rushing to pay the running back then either, to be fair.
The Steeler teams, they had elite quarterback, elite running back.
But at the beginning, what were they? Well, I guess when they won that Super Bowl, you had Big Ben in the bus.
Yes.
But that was a rookie quarterback, wasn't it? Or a second year quarterback. So he wasn't paid yet. But yes, I see
but
your
you
point.
understand, I mean.
But in this era, from the last decade to now, though, there's not a whole lot of top 5 running backs, top 5 quarterbacks in the league. It's once you have a top 5 quarterback that they financially invested into, they will no longer financially invest into that running back. That's why if you look at the mid teams, like the Browns, you had Nick Chubb because you had Baker Mayfield. The Titans, you have Derrick Henry because you have Mike, whatever his name is, Tannehill. It's like all the elite running backs, they're on teams that don't have elite quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, if Eagles win the Super Bowl this past year,
they're still letting them go.
Yes.
Which is wild.
I mean, Miles Sanders I would say, without me off the top of my head, he was a top 10 running back in the NFL.
Yep.
I was going to say top 5, but just to cover myself, top 10. Jalen Hurts was certainly a top 5 quarterback in the NFL last year. If they win, does that change the dynamic? Probably not. Because now, reason why, you always, follow the money. You draft a running back high, and they're usually going to sign him to a 4 to 5 year deal, like Saquon Barkley. He does exactly what you don't. But even if Saquon didn't get hurt, they don't want to pay him that second contract. Because you got him on a rookie contract, you got him, quote unquote, air quotes, for cheap.
Yep.
Because if you draft him in the first round or the 4th round or the 7th round, he exceeds your expectation level. I don't know why it exceeds your expectation level, but he outplays his contract. You don't want to give him that second contract. And so by the time he gets to his second contract after 4 to 5 years, you're automatically looking to replace him. But you don't do that for the quarterback. You're not doing that for the offensive lineman. You're not doing that, for the wide receiver. And they always use the analogy, well, that's too many hits on the running back. Well, how many throws is on his quarterback arm? He doesn't have a rotator cuff. He doesn't have elbow issues. But we don't care about it. We let him throw. But in baseball, they worry about how many pitches he pitch. But in football, we don't care how much he throws. Whether it's in practice, in the game, you're just going to throw that arm out. It only has a finite amount of throws in that shoulder. But we don't care about that. It's worth it. But the running back, you worry about hits and stuff. Let us worry about that. Let us worry about that. You just pay me for what I am putting out there on the field. So I'm always going to be pro running back, but I'm also pro player. Pay the players what they deserve.
All right, Justin Kinner, College Football Hall of Famer Keith Byars. Keith, thank you for stopping in, hanging
Absolutely.
out with us.
Good to be here.
Shout out to Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken as well, because they help bring you the Keith Byars Show every Wednesday from noon to 1, and you'll have Keith Byars and his show coming up on this Wednesday from noon to 1 as well. Do you know what's on deck for Wednesday yet?
Oh, well, hey, I think I'm officially announcing my quarterback list. I think I'm ready.
Yep.
I'm ready. It's football season.
Where's Daniel Jones, Mr. 40 million?
Daniel Jones is on the list.
He's on. Well, he has to be, but we're on the list.
Like I said, I didn't graduate top of my class in high school, but it didn't take him long to call my name. It may take a while to call Daniel Jones's name.
And that's fine. Yeah, exactly. All right, folks, we'll be right back. It's the Kinner and Kev Show, 1410 Wing AM. No Kev Nash today. Got to hang out with Keith Byars for an hour, so that was pretty cool. Keith, thank you. Appreciate it.
Good to be here.
We'll be right back.
O'Reilly.
Did you know 1 in 4 car batteries is weak and needs to be replaced? O'Reilly Auto Parts will test your battery for free. If your battery needs to be replaced, our professional parts people can help you find the right Superstart battery for your vehicle and budget. Don't wait. Get your battery tested for free today at your local O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
DQ presents. That's the sound of someone seeing the DQ $7 meal deal. And that's the sound of someone deciding if they want the original cheeseburger or 3-piece chicken strips with their $7 meal deal. And that's the sound of someone digging into their choice of original cheeseburger or 3-piece chicken strips, plus regular fries, a drink, and a sundae. Sounds pretty good, right? Grab the full-size $7 meal deal only at DQ. Happy tastes good.
Summer rib season is back, baby, at Frickers. Join us for the perfect pairing of frickin' chicken chunks and baby back ribs together all summer long for only $14.99. Bring the whole family as kids 10 and under eat free from the kids menu all day, every day. Spend time with the family. Enjoy frickin' chicken chunks and baby back ribs all summer long for only $14.99, and kids 10 and under eat free only at the home for fun, food, sports, and spirits, Frickers.
Attention Dayton car shoppers. You need to see Chevrolet of Troy today for the absolute lowest prices in Dayton. We beat any dealer's price with thousands off MSRP. Over 300 vehicles in stock and ready to go. It's the best in the region. We always accept employee and supplier pricing and make financing easy. Customer service is our top priority. A full service, state-of-the-art dealership and absolute best selection make Chevrolet of Troy your best choice. 1375 South Market Street and online at ChevroletofTroy.com.
Alpha Media Dayton, a leader in digital and broadcast media marketing, has a rare opening in our sales department for a hybrid integrated marketing consultant. If you're a dynamic individual who knows how to build successful partnerships and has a passion for helping local business drive more customers, send us an email, DaytonJobs@alphamediausa.com. That's DaytonJobs@alphamediausa.com, or call 937-519-0111. Alpha Media is an equal opportunity employer.
At Staples, school savings are always in session. From art supplies and essentials to the latest tech, in stock and price low. School on, save on at your local Staples store.
Hey, it's Justin Kinner from the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash. We appreciate all of our listeners and, of course, our sponsors. In fact, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be able to do what we do every weekday from 3 to 6 p.m. right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. We take pride in being Dayton's only local afternoon sports talk show right here in the Miami Valley. If you would like to jump in as a sponsor of our show or promote your services within our show, all you have to do is reach out to us directly by texting us at 937-518-1410. Want Kevin and I to endorse